validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt up on the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher constantly, making my own climb. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. Whoa. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield.
Oh, let me put this button right here. There we go. How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Uh, we got some lag going on today. It's always something, y'all. It's always something. We're gonna get through it. We're gonna get through it. I got technical support coming to help us out with this coming soon, but we're gonna be dragging a little bit today. So I'm gonna treat it the way I treated it when we were dealing with T-Mobile. So uh we're live 7 nights a week. We do not let the sun rise without going live, but we don't always start on time. That's why we ask you guys to like and subscribe, and then otherwise hit those notification buttons and potentially um, go check the membership and see what you guys can get from there. There's a lot of information going up there right now. I just really be putting together like everything under the sun that could potentially make you guys more financially successful. So I'll be trying my best to keep with the information in the membership. So y'all are gonna see a lot of stuff going into the membership coming soon. Um, while we're live 7 nights a week, we have different topics every night of the week. There's a lot of stuff that's been happening in politics recently, but the war is still stagnant. So uh, Sunday we do questions and comments from the fans. We had a lot of interaction from a lot of people on Sunday, yesterday, where we covered a plethora of topics that we I really enjoyed it at the very least. It was a lot of knowledge. Some of the guys that came in, they had a lot of information input to put in there, so I thought that was cool. But then after that, we have Mondays. Now, Mondays typically we have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays. We have business and politics, where Mondays we talk about how politics negatively impacts your ability to make, save, and invest money. Then we have on Tuesdays, we talk about different ways to make money, save money, invest money, and budget the money. Different ways to look at the money. We covered a 2 week mantra on how to protect that money. Then Wednesday, different countries around the world that we can invest in and potentially go live in, probably more affordable than the current place of living that we have. Um, and then we start talking about Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, where we give you guys information about self improvement, personal development, relationship topics, negotiations, socializations, building your brand. Uh, we've talked about promotions and raises. We've talked about retirement. We're going to be talking about coming soon. We're actually going to be talking about the retirement, forced retirement, severance packages. All of the things that makes you successful on the job side, right? Then we also give you guys more information about your 20-year and 30-year plan, how to prepare for that, navigate around that, get yourself set up because if you know where you want to be at in life and how much it costs to get there, you know what you got to do to put that money aside to make it there. Um, Life isn't always going to go the way you want it to go. A lot of the times, like we say, well, if you have a fixed amount that you put in there, at least that fixed amount goes in there. But if you're trying to aim for something closer to 20% of your income, or if you have multiple incomes in your household, if you're trying to do 20% of the household income, the overall income, then you're in a position where that amount that you put in might be uh, fluctuating. For example, if you have a household income that's averaging like $5,500 a month, but it's an average. Some months it might be 4,800, some months it might be 5,700. And if you're taking out if you're taking out 10%, you're taking out like 570 sometimes, 580 sometimes, 540 sometimes. If you're doing 20%, you're taking out like 1,100 sometimes, you're taking out 950 sometimes. So it really depends on if you're going to be doing an exact percentage of your total income, or if you're going to be doing a if you're going to be doing like a fixed amount, like I'm going to put exactly $50 a month, or I'm going to put exactly $150 a month, because that's the amount that I know I'm never going to need for whatever purpose. Now, um, we give you guys all of these kinds of discussions and information topics because what people don't pay attention to is that life uh, is only going to bite you in the rear if you are not prepared for it. Plain and simple. If you are not prepared for it. So if you are prepared for it, then you're going to be okay. But if you're not prepared for it, that is when the rubber meets the road, and you have to figure out how you're going to make ends meet. So I ask you guys on a regular basis to uh, put some money somewhere where you can cover the things that you're not expecting. You're not always going to be able to cover all of it, but you cover enough of it to where you're not falling short on your primary responsibilities. This is one of the things that not too many people pay attention to. Um, because I mean, when money's coming in and money's going good, a lot of people believe it is what it is. We're going to be all right. But the truth of the matter is that that's not always the case. You might be good right now while the money is going good right now, but when things go south, and things will definitely go south, when it does happen, that's when you're in the position where you got to try to figure out how you're going to make ends meet. Are you going to rob Peter to pay Paul? And this is one of the things that I want to talk to you guys about. So, um, we give you guys a lot of information about how to get around all these things, to prepare for a lot of things, to make you guys more successful, and that's why I want you guys to make sure that you stay tuned. So I was waiting on my man Steven to pop in here. We're about to get started. We're going to go ahead and start covering today's topic, because today we're going to be talking about what's been happening over the past uh, couple of weeks with Trump going to other countries, right? And we're going to see what's up with that, and how that actually impacts our ability to make, save, and invest money. Because you got to understand that while a lot of times, some people just talk politics for the sake of talking politics. I really only talk about how the politics directly impacts your wallet, because that's really going to be what benefits you the most, is being able to navigate how you're going to be able to pay bills and stuff to that effect. So we seen. some stuff happening and a lot of things changed. But when Donald Trump went to China in what was it just recently, uh, April or May of 2026, the headlines were focused on two things, you know, trade deals and diplomacies. But that was just the surface because behind the public handshakes and grand photo ops, a far more complex reality was unfolding because the official story was just that, a story. I mean, a carefully constructed narrative for public consumption, while the real motives and consequences that we're just so happening to see were just a little bit outside of the frame of what everybody was paying attention to. So, in tonight's show, we're going to be pulling back the curtain to look at the three layers of Trump's 2026 China trip that give a much fuller picture. So, we're going beyond the headlines to reveal a geopolitical gambit that is deeply personal, in economic uh, spectacle that was more of a mirage than a miracle, and a masterclass in political symbolism that played two audiences at once. Now, this is going to be the story of what was really happening. Now, to understand the real significance of Donald Trump's state visit to China, you have to remember the atmosphere that we're dealing with because Donald Trump is operating on a second term right now, but in his first term, he was eager to project that strength. And back then, the world was on edge over North Korea, whose missile test had everyone anxious, and national security advisors H.R. McMaster said that the trip's goal back then, when he did it in 2017, was to rally international resolve to denuclearize North Korea and promote a uh, free and open Indo-Pacific and get fair reciprocal trades back then. Now it's a little bit more complex because this time uh, he went because of partly because of what was going on with the Strait of Hormuz. Now, his first visit in 2017 on the surface was supposed to be to follow a script. They were supposed to meet, a press conference on some exact topics, and then China rolls out the red carpet, calling it a state visit plus, complete with military honors and an extraordinary tour of the Forbidden Cities. Now, he pretty much got the same experience this time around when he went back over there. The media had reported of handshakes back in those days where the praise of Trump heaped on his counterpart, where Xi Jinping and the massive, eye watering figure of the $250 billion announced business deals that were happening at that time. And we're looking at a lot of things shifting right now. But those narratives back then and the narratives that we got right now, you know, one, you saw it on the news, and two, you see it all over social media. It it's an incomplete sketch of the three-dimensional events that keep happening when Donald Trump goes to China. So to truly grasp what's happening, you have to look beyond the official press releases. You have to understand that every political gesture has a private meaning and every announced deal had a hidden subtext. So the three angles that we're about to explore aren't conspiracy theories, they're the layers of analysts based on a deep reading of the events and their outcomes. So, we're going to reveal a trip that was less about solving diplomatic problems and more about managing perceptions. So, first, we're going to discuss the central geopolitical drama, which is the war in Iran. And we're going to show how Trump's approach wasn't just about the sanctions, but a deeply personal, high risk gambit to leverage Xi Jinping again himself in yet another deal. This was a bet on his own personality to reshape decades of geopolitics. Second, we're going to be looking at going behind the curtain of the widely touted $253 billion in trade deals. Again, about the trades. We're going to be going inside the numbers to show you guys why the staggering figures wasn't quite what it seemed. A masterpiece of economic theater designed to create the appearance of a massive win. I mean, a win is a win, but a massive win is far different from just a win, right? Third, we're going to be analyzing powerful unspoken symbolisms of the visit. We're going to be exploring how the state versus the state visit plus idea, uh, also throwing in that special honor situation like private dinner in the Forbidden Cities, were part of a sophisticated message aimed at two audiences at one time, serving both China's strategic goals and Trump's domestic political needs. So together, these angles paint a complete picture of a presidential trip that was far more calculated and complex than you were led to believe when the situation first took off. Now, the official story, Donald Trump's China trip, was dominated by one issue, the Iran war, right? Late March, early April 2026, fragile ceasefire was in place, but Iran had largely shut down the Strait of Hormuz to most vessels, disrupting global shipping and spiking oil prices. Which, if we're benefiting from investing in those companies, you see the companies going across the screen. You've got companies that are in oil transport like DHT and International Seaway. You've got stocks directly impacted by oil like Shell, Chevron, ExxonMobil that you guys see up there. Like you can really go in there and go and grab quite a few of them and benefit from the changes in events. You're looking at disrupting in global shipping and spiking in oil. So that's what you want to be paying attention to when you're going to invest in your stocks and bonds and investment opportunities. Now, the world was watching to see if the two great powers, which is the United States and China, could find a path to a durable peace. Trump's goal was going to be clear here. He hoped China would use its leverage as Iran's main oil buyer and economic partner to help in the war, where the United States officials wanted Beijing to cut or condition its support for Tehran, stop providing military assistance, and push Iran towards a more stable ceasefire. Ultimately, saying that the reason why Iran is able to function for a number of months during an all out blockade is because the person that's buying all of their export or the majority of it is China. So by talking to China, saying, hey, can you just stop giving him money until he give me what I'm due? That kind of keeps him from skirting me and talking to you. Publicly, Trump and Z agreed on high level points that Iran should never obtain nuclear weapons, and that the Strait of Hormuz should remain open for global shipping, right? Trump went further, claiming that Xi had promised not to send military equipment to Iran, which he called a big statement. However, no detailed, verifiable agreement was ever released to the public to reflect that. Now, this is going to be where the public story and the hidden reality diverge. Okay. Analysts were deeply skeptical that China would truly halt all forms of security assistance to Iran. That's what everybody thought. Tehran had long served as a valuable counterweight to the United States power in the Middle East, and a vague promise to Trump was unlikely to change that fundamental strategic interest. The ceasefire in place at the time of the visit was already fragile because China had previously leaned on Tehran to accept it, but mainly to protect its own economic standings from the chaos in the Gulf. Now, with Iran still able to re escalate at any moment, the situation is going to be precarious. So, in the end, the summit failed to produce a clear roadmap out of the war. So, commentators describe the conflict as being left in limbo because Trump and Xi did not agree on a concrete plan or enforcement mechanism. China's behavior after the summit confirmed its balancing act. While it nudged Iran towards talks, it also quietly allowed Chinese companies to provide commercial and dual use support that could help Iran's war efforts. Just days after the summit, China signaled it was not aligned with Washington's pressure campaign by opposing a US backed UN move targeting Iran. Now, militarily, uh, the trip resulted in no decisive shifts. Diplomatically, it added another layer of vague pledges, but locked neither China nor Iran into a binding endgame. And strategically, the trip exposed the limits of the Trump deal making capabilities. The billionaire that usually gets what he's looking for when he walks in, he's got to recalibrate and try this again. Now, he needed Chinese leverage to clearly end the war, but China proved unwilling to sacrifice its strategic relationship with Iran just for Donald Trump. So, the official story of Donald Trump in 2026 China trip framed around one central crisis, that Iranian war with the Strait of Hormuz. By the time he landed in Beijing, fragile ceasefire in place just largely shut down all of the vessels that would have been going in and out of the strait. So hold on, we have Jarvis. Jarvis says, Jarvis says, he doesn't need to recalibrate. He needs to go the heck away. uh, I mean, he said, prove anything you are saying. Well, first and foremost, are you able to disprove everything that I'm saying? Because it seems like, oh, like with data. So you want me to pull up the spreadsheets and pull up the charts and camera angle you to what? I don't know, Washington's ledger to kind of show you exactly what's going on. Because to me, it seems like you just don't like Trump and you think that I'm a Trump supporter, so you're going to come and just heckle the show. I respect your opinion that you believe that Donald Trump needs to go away. I know a lot of people that watch the show believes that if Donald Trump get elected for a third term, that they're going to leave the country and go anywhere, Canada, anywhere. You got a lot of people who just really dislike. But then you also got Trump supporters who come in and claim that Democrats are complete morons, and still, a lot of the Republicans that actually vote Republicans are people that are making less than 75,000 a year, and those people actually benefit from Democratic policies. So, you know, I point out what it is, and then um, in most situations, I point out how that impacts us. I point out how we benefit from it financially. So, you want me to prove what I am saying when I'm showing you that the what do you want an airline ticket to China to show that he went? Do you want me to put up the video from when he was standing next to Z in the photos when they were asking him about Taiwan and he didn't want to answer the question? Do you want me to like show you what to make you satisfied about your emotional position against Trump, which has nothing to do with me because I am neither for nor against the man. I only give a shit about my money and how what he does negatively impacts my ability to make, save, and invest money, right? And when I talk to everybody else on the show, I tell everybody else about what they can do so that they are not negatively impacted about how politics interferes with our ability to make, save, and invest money. He said, sorry, I didn't mean heckled. I just think that gas prices keep climbing. Yes, and we've talked about that on the show quite a few times. Gas prices are going to keep climbing as long as we're at war, but gas prices are going to climb even higher because people are paying excessive insurances on whether or not their ships are going to get blown up if they do travel through the strait. Also, I was telling you guys about different companies you can invest in, like DHT for the shipping containers, International Seaway for the shipping containers, Shell, Chevron, Exxon Mobil are 5 different ways that you can profit off of gas prices going up. but I've covered that for like the last 3 months. I I put links on the show for different platforms and programs where you can get rebates on your gas prices or get complete discounts on your gas prices so that you're not spending a lot of money or not spending as much money on gas, anywhere between 5 and 25 cents a gallon off on your gas prices. So when you tell me prove the data, if you were watching the show when I put the link on there and showed how I got back 1,200 bucks on buying gas from using Upside, when I talked to you guys about Car Advance, where I just got $4.75 back off of $40 worth of gas, I'm showing you guys that there's other ways that you can navigate society when things that happen outside of your control actually occur. But you want me to show you the data. When I was on the show a couple of weeks ago and last week, when I was showing you guys the stock options that were actually showing dividend distribution. I mean, if you really want to see the data, go to the membership. He said, I am practicing my Canadian. I can say quite fluently. Well, but you're not practicing articulation. He said, you don't need to validate yourself. Oh, I know, Michael. I just want him to make it make sense. Special shout out to Dylan. Dylan used to be here on a regular basis. Then he disappeared. He fell off the map. He disappeared out the membership. I was like, what's going on with Dylan? He said nothing wrong with having an opinion, but the reality that we just have to deal with whoever is in charge, and we just need to try and get ahead regardless. And I completely agree with that, Dylan. Special shout out to Dylan. That is the exact reason why we talk about this, because we can't control what the people in charge do, but what we can do is control how it impacts us. So we first have to figure out what's going on so that we can figure out what to do about it. That's what I talk about on the show on a regular basis. He said, not emotional, just upset. Sir, upset is emotional. Before we go further with everything else you got to say, not emotional means that you're coming from logic and reason. Logic and reason does not have anything to do with emotions. But when you are upset, when you are frustrated, when you are disappointed, that is an emotional impact. And that emotional impact that you have about the gasoline prices and the grocery prices, because those gasoline prices and were not beneficial to your current salary. That is exactly what we talk about on the show. I completely agree with you. I think that the gas prices suck. I think that the grocery prices going up suck. Gas prices and grocery prices are not going to be the only thing that's going to negatively be impacted by this. Your electricity bill is going to go up. Your water bill is probably going to go up. Your shipping for all products that you buy is going to go up, because since gas prices are going up, the ship that it's being shipped in on is going to go up. The tariffs is going to make it go up. The truck that it's put on when it's driven across the country is going to make the prices go up. So what used to be $5 is going to start becoming $10. Yeah, I completely understand that, but we talk about it all the time on this show. He said, "Profit off of others, misery." Absolutely, yeah, and we're going to be making a lot of money off of Jarvis. He said, "Just use this app; it gives you rebates." Yeah, that's exactly how it works. I mean, Steven had downloaded the Stash app, got 30 bucks for downloading the Stash app. Joe Jack just downloaded Stash app for the same reason. They're getting free stock on the thing on top of what they invest in. If you download Upside, every time you use it at the pump, it gives you back rebates. If you grab yourself a car advance, it just links directly to your bank account and then gives you back money for the gas that you buy. Yeah, that's exactly what happens. No membership required, because I actually do agree with that statement about we just have to deal with who's in charge. But we're not just dealing with who's in charge. That's the other part of it. We're not just dealing with who's in charge. We're also navigating around the decisions that that person makes. Whether it's a good decision or a bad decision, we're navigating around the decision. Because if he goes to China and gets China to do something, and China does something, and then Iran does something, and then, a few extra bombs got to get made, that's money coming out of our pocket. You do realize that in order for them to go to war, they write a blank check for resources that the treasury bonds cover. He said, but isn't that why we vote? No, sir. That's not why we vote. A lot of people vote for ego. A lot of people vote for popularity. They vote for the guy they recognize. They vote for the name that they remember on the ballot. They don't pay attention to the policies. They don't pay attention to the campaign trail, because with 70 something percent of America that voted for Donald Trump, that means that more than half of the voters were women. Well, not half of the voters, more than half of the women were voters, right? But the laws that Donald Trump put out after he got into office didn't favor the women who are pissed off now. And those women are pissed off at the men. Well, hold on now. 75% of or 70% of America voted. That means that, 40 something percent of both sides voted. 40 something percent of men, 40 something percent of women, right? That voted for Donald Trump. The LGBTQ community voted for him, but they voted because they were Republican. They didn't vote because his policies and campaigns would benefit them. LGBTQ community includes the T. The T includes surgeries, and those people are now banned from getting those surgeries. But they voted for him because they're Republicans. So no, people don't vote for the leader because of what the leader will do. They vote because they're Republican. They vote because they're Democrat. They vote because they're poor and they want to get money from the government. They vote because they're rich and they want to keep money in their pocket. They vote because they know who the guy is, but they don't vote because they know every single policy that's out there. Nor do they care, which is one of the reasons why Americans only vote once every 4 years when you technically are supposed to be voting every 3 to 6 months. There's always something to vote for. But since nobody votes, everybody's abstained. The people who make the executive decisions, the 5 to 10 people in the room when the decision gets made, because nobody else is going to question it. When's the last time you went to a town hall, Jarvis? Probably never. You don't even know where the town hall is in your neighborhood, right? But when things suck in your neighborhood, when things suck in your city, when things suck in your state, when things suck in your country, that is because collectively the society has failed to do their due diligence to contribute to change. Because Congress, the only reason why we've got people in Congress from 18 to 60 is because nobody else has ever contested that seat. They're in there for 40 years on 2 year terms because they've been reelected 10 or 15 times because nobody else is trying to run. There's 500 people that want to be in Congress and 280 something million Americans that don't give a shit. You're 200 something 80 Americans that don't even want to do jury duty, much less do 2 years in Congress. When Congress is getting like $125,000 to work for 6 months, I don't understand why everybody's not running for Congress. You get fucking what, $25, $30, $40 a day for jury duty, but you get almost $250,000 to sit on a seat for Congress for half the year. I would be running for Congress every 2 years, you know, but people don't, you know. Michael said, only thing going up in my life is blood pressure. We're focused on our controllables. That's right. Special shout out to Steven. Now, where were we? Because he came in. He came in with some pretty interesting stuff. uh, so commentator, wait, hold on. Dylan got something. Oh, wait. Yeah, well, let's go. He said, well, I would like uh, to be your vice president, but I think we should move the White House into a cruise ship and travel the world. Well, see, that's the thing. If we become president and vice president, bro, we don't need to move the White House. We could just get on Air Force One. Air Force One is whatever Air Force we're on. He said, also, where did the books go? Hey, a lot of things have upgraded on the show, bro. We got this huge banner now, right? And actually, I'm finding myself agreeing with you. Well, of course, because I talk about logic and reason. I don't come off of emotion. I don't come off of bashing people. I don't attack the messenger. I'm not going to say that you're stupid for your opinion. Your opinion is your opinion. I don't know why your opinion is the way it is, but I'm only here to make it make sense. And once I start making it make sense, the only people who don't agree with me are the people who are emotionally attached to their position. But their emotional attachment to their position is going to be based off of pride and loyalty. It has absolutely nothing to do with the facts. Even if it negatively impacts them, their pride doesn't want to admit when something's changed and they need to change their decision making, and their loyalty will prevent them from turning their back on whoever it is that they have to turn their back on in order for them to succeed in life. A lot of times people will fail with their homeboy out of loyalty instead of doing away with their homeboy and succeeding on their own. You know, the it is what it is. He said, actually, I've been told many town halls in my state of Utah, right? But how many of them have you gone to? Do you know the address of a couple of them? That's what I'm trying to tell you. He said, I protested the AI data center going up in Brigham County. Yeah, but see, that's not what you was. Okay, so protesting is a fantastic way to go to bring attention to an ongoing problem. Because when more than five people, hold on, let me rephrase this. When more than three black people show up, everybody starts paying attention. That's just racial profiling. But when more than 5 or 10 non-black people show up and they have picket signs and they're talking loud and people start paying attention. Okay, so you start getting 10, 15, 20, 100, 200 people, 1,000, 2,000 people in one location, mad about the same thing. The news starts covering the topic. So that's what the protesting is supposed to be for. But the other half is that you are supposed to write a letter to your elected officials, the guys who vote on the laws that allow for the AI data center to be built. And you demand that they make certain changes. You do your research on what legally can and cannot be changed, and then you demand that your local officials vote out that data center, right? That you vote to change zoning laws to prevent that data center from being built, right? Stuff to that effect. Vote anti-grandfathered in scenarios where even if they started building the data center, when the law changed, they got to tear the data center down. That's how you make change. You write a letter to the people who have the authority to make change. Doesn't always work. You can write a letter and you may not get nothing back in response and might not see nothing change. But odds are, that sometimes if what you're saying makes sense, it has nothing to do with emotion. It's fact, it's logic. And at the end of the day, what you're saying actually will benefit your community. It'll benefit that person and that person's constituents. You might have a random visit from somebody you wasn't expecting to have a visit from so that they can get more information about what you complained about. And if you articulate it without unnecessary emotion, they may actually do what you want. It's not 100% guaranteed, but you have a high probability. But standing in the street talking about how this country sucks, that ain't gonna make the country better. If the 8 or 9 white people show up, it's a party. If show up, it's a riot. That's why out of 20, 9 of them are black. uh, Earlier, you said law and morality weren't the same thing. I may have made, I don't recall saying that, but I may have made a comment similar to that on a different show. But law and morality are not the same thing. So if I didn't say it before, I'm going to say it now. Law and morality are not the same thing. Take, for example, lane splitting, just for the sake of this is a straw man topic, off topic of what we're talking about with Donald Trump going to China and the Strait of Hormuz. Lane splitting. Some cities and states it's legal, right? The morality of it, the ethics of behind it, would be that if traffic wasn't moving and the motorcycle person got off of their bike and walked their bike through traffic like a bicycle person would walk their bike on a sidewalk, that lane splitting wouldn't be much of an issue because that motorcycle person would be able to see cars and navigate around those cars while everybody's sitting still. They can move their bike to the front of the road. They can mount their bike when it's time for them to take off at the green light, and they would not be, from what we've seen with plenty of YouTube videos and TikTok videos and everything like that, rolling up past the first car that I either stopped on a line or over the line, and they're rolling past that car, which puts the motorcycle into the crosswalk. People are crossing the street at the time, and now they're colliding with pedestrians, right? Now, also, you got folks that are lane because lane splitting is legal in some cities and states, and there isn't a maximum speed limit for lane splitting, right? If the cars are going 30 miles an hour, the motorcycle can be doing 50 miles an hour in between the cars. Now, if a vehicle was to pivot, whether the driver reached for their phone and kind of swerved a little bit, whether they saw something in the road and kind of swerved a little bit, or what if they were just being an asshole and you didn't want the motorcycle guy to get in front of them and kind of swerve the car a little bit. Now the motorcycle guy is in a crash because they're driving faster than their reaction time. They can't slow down. They're going to crash into the car. And now it's the car's fault. Look, reasonable liability puts the motorcycle person, if you were moving faster than your ability to react, you were driving too fast. It doesn't matter if you were doing a speed limit. If your reaction time is slower than 40 miles an hour, your speed should not be 45. Because if you can't react in time to stop from hitting the car in front of you, that is called following too close. or otherwise identified as tailgating. But even though lane splitting is otherwise legal, ethically, the way the motorcyclists do it is more dangerous than letting them get run over by a car. Now, motorcyclists are not going to like me for saying that, but that's the truth. The morality is that sometimes you got the constitutional right to do shit like bring an assault rifle into a bank. But morally, ethically, you probably shouldn't. Yeah, it might be okay for you to conceal carry your pistol in there, but a goddamn Long John Silver's M16 in your hand, finger on the trigger as you walk into the bank, traditionally that means that the bank is getting robbed, even though you are going to make a deposit, even though you're bringing money into the bank. The visual image of you holding that big ass assault rifle as you walk into the bank makes everybody believe that they're under attack. And before you can say, I'm here to make a deposit, they are shooting at you in the bank, not because you did something wrong, not because you're breaking the law, because morally and ethically, that type of behavior is stereotypically the behavior of a criminal. So, morals, ethics, law, not the same. And tradition and practice, the way things go, is also not law. We have a law in the United States where you're not supposed to spit on American soil. That is considered treason. People spit on a regular basis, but in practice, nobody really enforced that. We have a no littering law. There's laws in certain states where you can't fall asleep under a hairdryer. There are laws in certain states where you can't walk into a bank with a fake mustache, but we do it. It's Halloween. I'm dressed up as, Muzzy Bowles or whatever. It is what it is. Because I hate lane split. Too many car drivers don't pay attention. Too many accidents. I agree with you. California legal lane splitting. All right, but morals and ethics. Special shout out to OG Kicks. That's why I just use my helicopter everywhere I fly. I do perform brake checks when being tailgated. I stopped performing brake checks. You know what I do, Steven? I take my foot off the gas, put the car in neutral, and just let whatever happens happen. I'm not brake checking shit. But you're just going to really find out that, damn, you're catching up to this car pretty quickly. Michael says, I was punished for in early withdrawal from the sperm bank. Go sit down and take your time out, Michael. I 100% agree with you. Your lane splitting statements. I also want to go on record as say I have no issues with, but to be honest, it is my opinion. But the fucking AR-15 for. I personally don't carry anyone, bro. Look. Hey, I'm with you on that because you remember the story about the guy who went into the Chipotle with the AR-15 and caused all that ruckus. I take my pistol into a McDonald's every time I go, but do you see me walking into a McDonald's with an AR-15? You don't even have enough clear space to draw the firearm like unorthodox, like goddamn King Arthur, to go and get the target. You don't have enough room. You got the line in front of you. You got some Chipotle's. You got the buffet table over here, the intro line, the cash register, bars, wall, employees, and then the open space with tables and chairs and people bumping into one another as servers and bus boys and all that. You don't have enough room to swing a firearm in a place like that. Walmart, maybe, but not a Chipotle. But the fact is that while it's constitutionally allowed to bring your firearm into public places, it is also lawfully allowed on the city and state level for an establishment to ask you to take that shit outside. They have the right to refuse service for anybody carrying a firearm. They can't trespass you for the weapon, but they can trespass you for making a scene because they didn't want to service you with the weapon. Because lawfully, any person with the authority over the property, whether they work for the company or they own the property, ask you to leave, they have revoked your right to premises, which is a verbal trespass. And if you remain after they say, please leave, they can call the police and have the police take you out. If you refuse to go because you did nothing wrong, what you actually did wrong was you didn't leave when they told you to leave. So, I mean, all of that stuff plays a huge role. The most responsible weapon owners I've ever met always keep it hidden until it's needed. I agree with you. I agree with you. Um, But in in today's time, just like what we're talking about with the oil interactions with Trump and Xi Jinping and Iran and all this other stuff. Like not everybody does what they're supposed to do, right? Just because we have the lawful right, but we have the lawful right to do a lot of things, but there isn't a specific way on how to get it done. The law is an outline, and then we are supposed to, because we have a constitutional right. I forgive you, and that's why I didn't ban you when you jumped up with your comment. I was like, explain to me, because you clearly haven't been coming to the show long enough. Make sure you like and subscribe. You haven't been coming to the show long enough to really know what kind of person I am. I speak on logic and reason. I speak on facts. I'm a man of uniformity. If it's a fucked up situation, it's a fucked up situation for whoever's in that situation. Not because it's me, not because it's you, not because it's a male or a female, not because of your race, your color, or your income. Just because whoever fell up into that role, they got fucked over. That's how I feel about it, right? And then I back that with facts and information. I curate every show. So I'm over here talking about Trump not because I like him, but because what he's doing is fucking up the market, and it's good for the broke folks because since the market is so volatile, all of the rich people are pulling their money out of stuff that is so undervalued that the stocks across the screen are cheap as fuck, and they're dividend paying stocks where you can invest in those stocks and make you a shit ton of money when the market go back to normal. Because the man is either going to be in office for 2 more years, or if they find a way to change the laws, be in there for 5 more years. And then when he's gone, whenever, whether it's 2029 or 2039, whenever he's gone, the market is going to restabilize. And when it restabilizes, every stock that's down will be up. And the ones that you have, when they go up, are locked in at the high interest rate, low price value. You're going to get growth and you're going to get dividends. That's why I cover this stuff. I don't cover this stuff because I'm like, oh, I'm a Trump fan. I'm logging off. I wish you well. Hey, I appreciate you for coming, Jarvis. Hopefully, I see you tomorrow when we're talking about money. Uh, but yeah, so the commentators had described the conflict as being left in limbo because Trump and Xi had no plan, no timeline, no enforcement mechanisms, and China's behavior after the summit was that even though they did nudge Iran to go and do the talks, they had no real recourse because their companies came out and they actually still went back out there and did what they were supposed to do, which is opposing U.S. backed moves to targeting Iran in the United Nations. Now, as I was saying, diplomatically, it layered a more vague pledge without locking in China or Iran into anything that would cause this conflict to stop anytime soon. And I had originally said sometime like June or July, and I might have to reassess the situation and assume that it might be August or September. But strategically, this did expose the limits of Trump's deal making approach, and that's when Jarvis came in because I was like, he needs to reassess and go back in, and Jarvis was like, nah, Trump needs to disappear. Look, since he needed the leverage from China, but he didn't get it. Now we're in a different situation where he's got to figure out another way to put a stop to this conflict. Because one thing he's not going to do is surrender. He's not going to back down and just let Iran have the strait. That's not going to happen. So, if the first angle was the geopolitical gambit, the second angle that we're going to be talking about now is going to be the economic spectacle. At its heart was a single jaw dropping number, which was $253.5 billion. Now, this was the headline that flashed across the world on earlier this year, but I think we also heard about it before in November of 2017, where the United States and China companies had apparently signed some massive agreement somewhere, symbolizing a new era of cooperation, where China's commerce minister called it a miracle. Now, for a president who built his brand on deal making, this was the ultimate validation. The message to the American public was going to be simple: that I went to China and brought back $250 billion. And the same way he talked about how he called Sharpie and reduced the price of the pen from $1,000 a pen down to $5 a pen. That was a good deal. That was a good deal, right? Who the fuck pays for $1,000 Sharpie says White House on it. That's what I'm trying to like, who does that? Who pays $1,000 for a Sharpie that says White House on it or United States President on it? I could have bought an aftermarket one looked exactly the same way for like $15 or $20 a pin. They're paying $1,000 a pin. That was crazy. Now, it was going to be a political masterstroke for what everybody paid attention to because the headline's so huge that it seemed to overwhelm any criticism except for what happened earlier today. Either that Sharpie deal was a game changer. Damn right, because he signs one executive order and gives the pen away and then signs another executive order at $5 a pin instead of $1,000 a pin, he is saving $995 per executive order that he signs. That was a huge game changer because that's what 200 pins that he can now use for $1,000 instead of 200 pins being $200,000. That's a huge. It's less than 1% of the original cost. I don't know which Republican was like, "Oh, we're going to pay Sharpie $1,000 a pin." I would tag stuff up like a sketcher if I had $1,000 Sharpie. But see, the Sharpie is only valuable until it runs out of ink or the ink dries up, or you know you got to be able to authenticate it and prove that it's a White House pen. You might be able to resell it, but for you and I who use things practically, $1,000 pen from the president where he only signed his name one time, Donald Trump touched it. We're looking at the fact that once you finish using that son of a bitch, it is just an empty damn pen that really only cost them like $1 to make. And if you would have bought that exact same Sharpie in the color black from Walmart, you might have would have paid $2 to get it. And Donald Trump is paying $5 to get it express shipped with White House engraved on it, right? So back when the motherfuckers was $1,000, I got me a free pen. I could have sold it for what he paid for it. Somebody would have bought that off of eBay. Authentic White House pen, $1,075 to include the taxes and shipping. Make me a profit off of a Sharpie. But here's going to be the story behind the story. That $250 billion figure wasn't what it appeared to be because it was a masterpiece of political theater. A closer look, which many outlets took at the time, revealed that many of the deals weren't exactly deals. A large portion of the agreements were non binding memorandums of understanding, MOUs, and vague framework agreements. An MOU is essentially a letter of intent. So in real estate, if you were doing an MOU, you would be writing a letter intending to buy the property without actually putting up any money, without actually signing any contracts. You're just letting the seller know that I intend to buy the property eventually. Doesn't mean you will. Now, if the person who receives the MOU is sitting back waiting on you to take action, they may turn away other deals because they're waiting on you. Now, back in the day, like 50 years ago, 60 years ago, that would have been a solidifier of success. I got an MOU, right? This is a guaranteed deal. These days, your MOU is first come, first serve. I'll wait until somebody else gives me a better offer. But that letter of intent gives me a baseline of what someone is willing to do. So everybody else who comes until you show up, I'm letting them know that this is the least that I'm willing to accept because I've already got that offer on the table right now. Right. So it's a statement that two parties will explore the possibility of doing business together, not actually doing business together. It's going to carry no legal weight and requires no firm commitment. They can go back on a deal and nobody's liable for anything, right? Announcing MOUs as a $250 billion victory is like claiming that you've won the lottery because you bought the ticket. So let's break down some of the biggest components. A counterpiece was a $37 billion agreement for China to purchase 300 Boeing aircrafts. This was presented as a fresh monumental order. Problem there wasn't entirely new. Many of the planes included were part of an existing order or commitments that haven't been fulfilled. It was a common practice for state visits to China to involve repackaging old deals into a new impressive argument. So while great PR moments, it wasn't a sudden $37 billion windfall. Like China. I like China too. I like Chinese. I like Vietnamese. I like Indonesian. The Philippines is number one on my list. They love you long time, no problem. Then there's the colossal energy deals, a joint development agreement valued at up to 43 billion to advance the Alaska LNG project, a plan to export liquefied natural gas to China. Sound transformative, but the agreement was just to work cooperatively on LNG marketing, financing, and investment models. The models, what it would look like, working together on how to plan it, not actually doing it. So, with the goal of signing definitive contracts later, being in this agreement, they actually haven't even gotten to the contract part. We're just in the negotiations phase of the negotiations. If that's not a double standard. So it was an agreement to discuss building a pipeline, not a contract to actually build the pipeline. Uh, Years later, that version of the project has not materialized since 2017, falling victim to shifting market dynamics and the escalating trade wars. Now, another major deal and nearly $84 billion investment by China Energy in West Virginia's shale gas industry suffered a similar fate. The memorandum of understanding was signed with great fanfare, but the grand plans largely dissolved as United States and China tensions grew. So this pattern was repeated across the board. The agreements were often non-binding, repackaged old news or aspirational goals with no clear path to completion. So, what was the point of that? Well, the point was the headlines. The purpose of $250 billion announcement was largely political because for President Trump, it provided a powerful win to take home. It fit perfectly into his narrative as the ultimate deal maker. So for President Xi, the benefits were just as clear. Allowing Trump this largely symbolic victory cost China very little in the short term. In exchange for a stack of non binding papers, Xing got to flatter the American president, ease tension, and portray China as a cooperative partner. It was a mutually beneficial performance where both parties benefited. And I'd like to say, like this is the part that people don't pay attention to. Both leaders got a short-term political win. The real economics were secondary. The $250 billion figure wasn't a number meant for balance sheets. It was a number meant for television screens, people to see it, listen to it, talk shit about it at the barbershop, right? Now, let's get to that third layer. The third layer of this most recent trip is going to be about the power of symbolism. The official stories that Trump received a state visit plus, elevated level of diplomatic reception. The reality is that he was the star of the meticulously choreographed pageant designed by his hosts to achieve their strategic aims and consumed by his American supporters as proof of his status on the world stage. Now, this was no typical stage visit. The ceremony began in the moment of the Air Force One landing. Trump was greeted by a full military honor guard and flag waving children. From there, he was taken on a private tour from the Forbidden City, the historic palace of Chinese emperors. Most significantly, President Xi hosted a private dinner for the Trumps inside the Forbidden City, an honor widely described by Chinese and West media as the first state dinner for a foreign leader inside the palace in the PRC era. Y'all understand the PRC era? That's like the last 100 plus years. Right? So the Chinese government understood who they were dealing with. They knew Trump appreciated opulence, grandeur, and being treated as exceptional. The State Visit Plus was, on one level, a masterclass in flattery. But this was far more than just flattery. By hosting Trump in the heart of their former imperial palace, the Chinese leadership was sending a powerful message to the world and to Trump. They were saying, "We see you as an equal. We are a great power with a history as grand as any other." And they've got a damn good history, I tell you what. Hosting the American president in the seat of their ancestors, emperors who were symbolic and elevations of their own statue. I got to tell you, it's a subtle assertion of uh, portraying a little bit of dominance alongside the United States. However, this pageant was also broadcast to a different audience because Trump's political base in the United States, for them, the message was entirely different, but just as powerful because they saw a leader who they felt was constantly under attack from the domestic media and political establishments. Then they saw the images from China. They saw their president being treated with a reverence that bordered on imperial. They saw the leader of the world's greatest superpower closing down a world famous historical site for a private tour and dining where emperors once dined. They saw him reviewing military parades, which Trump himself called magnificent. So, for this domestic audience, the message wasn't one of uh, portrayal between the United States and China, it was one of personal supremacy. The subtext here is going to be that, they're going to read a completely different dynamic, such as our leader who is disrespected at home. As you see when your boy came up on the show and just kind of tried to read Trump as rights, our leader who's disrespected at home is so powerful that even the communist leaders of China treated him like royalty. The grandeur was seen not as a reflection of China's status, but as a tribute to the Trump's own status. It confirmed that their belief that he was a strong leader who commanded respect in a way his predecessors had. Yeah, I got to tell you, in the history of being a Biden fan, Biden has never commanded that level of respect. For one, he didn't have to. He said, "I bet the food was fire over there." Man, I don't know if you have ever had a Chinese person cook for you. I'm not saying going to a restaurant and ordering something from a Chinese restaurant. I'm talking about the cook specifically make you something for you to eat that is not on the menu. I can tell you every time I have ever experienced that, it was always above and beyond anything anybody else could ever imagine. I'm not gonna cap. Them folks can cook, male and female alike. Them folks can cook. And when they decide, they already put a lot of effort in their presentation, plate presentation, everything to that effect. They put a lot of effort into the ingredients. They put a lot of effort into the food in and of itself. But when they want to impress you, their food is custom. Yeah, in America, you want to impress somebody, just gonna take you to Ruby Tuesdays. In China, they will build you a Ruby Tuesday and cook the shit in the bag. It's a completely different atmosphere, you know. China only respects strength, not anything else. Um, they respect difference as a novelty. Um, because recognize that while you can go to China as a American and be stereotyped as a foreigner. The racism there still exists. So people with dark tans have mixed experiences because some people look at them as celebrities because there are no dark people in their culture, but the children actually get bullied more often because there are no dark children in their culture. So they respect strength, but they also respect uniqueness. So if you're not from around there, you don't look like everybody else, you don't talk like everybody else, you don't behave the way everybody else around them, you're different. And because you're different, they hold a level of minute respect for that. Once they get used to you though, all the ways that they can translate the N word might actually start coming out. But that's in every country. There's not one country that doesn't have some type of bias culture embedded in it. It's just that when you go to another country as a foreigner, uh, China, Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines are places where because you're a foreigner, because you're a tourist, because you're new to the area, they don't know who you are. They're going to at first give you somewhat of the utmost respect. Now, being the president of the United States, being popular, oh yeah, you're going to get a whole lot more respect than what you would have gone had you just got off the plane and they've never seen you here before, right? I know you from TV. I know you from social media. I seen you on my phone, and now you're here in front of me from the other side of the world. That's going to cater to a higher level of respect than what you would from, you know, you just got here. But yes, they do treat people in China better than what Americans treat each other. That is definitely true. They treat everybody in Eastern culture better than what the Western culture treats each other in Western culture. It has always been the thing. Now, this is going to be the genius of the great political symbolism because China used the imperial setting to project its national pride. Trump's base interpreted that same setting as a sign of their leader's unique greatness. Now, the pageantry reinforced a narrative. The hidden message was that in a world of complex that clearly not going to resolve anytime soon, the image of strength is going to matter more here than anything else. So the Chinese government crafted that image for its own purposes, and Donald Trump and his supporters eagerly consumed it for their own purposes. Both sides got what they wanted from the show. So, what do you think was there? Were these layers the trip of obvious uh, political resolutions at the time, or were they overshadowed by really big headlines? I want you guys to tell me what you guys think about that in the comment section. Now, if you want more deep dives about stuff like this, I want you guys to make sure that you take the opportunity to like and subscribe to the channel and mash those reaction buttons and notification bells because we're going to be giving you guys some pretty deep insights coming up. Because actually, there was some stuff that happened that I actually just thought about it, and I need to go ahead and cover that before anything else. Um, I was when I was doing the research over this, I seen and heard and read something about this long, like 12 or 24-hour prayer situation. I don't know if anybody else uh, paid attention to it, but it's something that came up, and I was sitting over here wondering, are 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 we going to start doing that? Um, because hold on, let me explain to you what's going on right now. Uh, there is a promotion for a large all-day prayer event on the National Mall, founded through a mix of money and private donations, prompting criticism that Donald Trump's administration is eroding the church state wall because there's supposed to be a religious cultural war that we're dealing with and Christian America. So I wanted to talk about that for a moment. He said Ray Diallo was in China recently and found out that the stock market there is a great bargain. What does your research tell you? What my research, I've covered this plenty of times about investing in other countries, and I have made it clear that while China's stock market is considered technically number two to America's stock market, that it is in your best interest to invest in more than one country's stock market so that if one country is going through financial hardships, your portfolio internationally is not suffering. Um, while China does have a positive market to invest in, as a non local, you have some hoops to jump through in order to invest in their market directly, which may require you to do such things as obtain citizenship or long term residency before you can start investing there or establish a foreign domestic business there and have that business invest in their market, where it's easier to establish a foreign domestic business than it is for you to establish citizenship and residency. Um, are you asking me, do I believe that China's market is profitable versus the American portfolio? I mean, it depends on what you're betting on. It also, one of the other things that you have to think about here, though, is the difference between growth stocks and dividend stocks is that if China's market has a very massive growth stock capability where you buy stocks from China, it grows quickly, right? While those types of stocks are good for people who have large quantities of financial reserves, those types of stocks, I see, or yes, those types of stocks for the average person is not going to benefit the average person because when most people can recognize this, that when the proverbial shit hits the fan, we typically need money at the most inconvenient time. We know things need to get done. We don't make enough money to do everything. We put certain things off, thinking that we have more time, and then time runs short. We have our car maintenance on life support. We have a broken phone on life support. We have all kinds of things that we just bondo and duct tape and everything together and just live life in a it's gonna be okay scenario. You got a car riding on used tires because it's gonna be okay. I can float this for a few more months and then I can just buy me a full set of tires and that few more months turns into 2 more years and I'll just buy me some new tires and then you don't buy new tires, you buy more used tires each time you get a flat because you never budgeted the money to replace the tires in the first place. So the problem is that the average person that makes less than $100,000 a year that is living at 80 or 90% of their income needs those dividends the same way Steven said, I need those dividends. So if China has dividend paying stocks that are paying 10, 12, 15%, 20% return on investment, and those stocks are 10, 20, 30-year blue chip companies, fuck yeah, buy into them. But if they're doing 15, 20% growth every year, while yes, it is fantastic, since the yen compared to the dollar is so much of a difference that you can probably put $10,000 in there and get like 100 or $200,000 worth of yen, or you put $10,000 in there and get like $500,000 worth of won or something like that. I don't know the exact ratios, but what I do know is that you might put in less dollars per yen and per won than what you get back with yen and won. And the fact is that if it's just growth, you got to sell it in order to make profit. And one of the biggest issues is that as an American citizen, you get taxed on any money that you make from another country. If you are going in as a personal investor, China is going to tell Donald Trump that you got profits from China. Now, if you're investing through your business, that doesn't happen. But we've covered international banking, and we've covered how a lot of the other financial institutions all across the world tax treaties where personal income is reported from country to country all over the world. So if you make an extra dollar under your personal name in another country, Donald Trump knows about it. Now, will he do something about it? That really depends on how much money you made and how often you report your taxes. But in the situation, under the dynamic you are um that you are making a bunch of money off of the Chinese market and you're not paying taxes in the United States for that, somewhere down the line, somebody's going to report you and you're going to get audited, right? So, yes, diversification is going to be the first thing you need to do, and you want to include foreign markets, but you have to start somewhere. So, the first step that I would tell you to do is to start by setting yourself a limit to how much you want to have of one stock out of whatever money that you have. Then you want to start investing in a second stock. Then you want to invest in a third stock. If you buy one stock per month until you get the stocks that you need, or if you're going to split up $100 and put $5 on each one of the stocks and you buy 17 stocks so that you have your portfolio in your hands, and then all you got to do is just add money to each one of those stocks as you see in the membership with the different portfolios that I put into the membership. Once you start with your core satellite portfolio, your high octane dividend driving growth stock portfolio, whichever one of the ones that you collected from the membership that I gave you guys, and you've diversified in your American stock. Once you reach a certain level, and I would recommend that the level that you stop investing in your own market is when your profits from your dividends can cover your standard of living, then you can take extra money and go invest in other countries. Because if you don't make enough money to pay your bills in America, what benefit does it have to you if you're making money in China? Now, if you're trying to split the cat in half and you want to have your emergency funds in China because you're going to move to China, if you want to put some emergency funds in the Philippines because you're going to move to the Philippines, and you have the ability to set up a bank account over there, and you have the ability to set up investment portfolios over there, or if you're going to set up an international bank account that allows you to invest in stuff over there while you still got money coming up over here. So by the time you get there, you got money in two different countries, then yeah, do that. But if you start talking about I live and breathe and exist in America exclusively, and I want to put my money somewhere else, and I don't have enough money to sustain my standard of living in America, I would tell you get a financial setting in America first. And then when you can afford to travel internationally, then you start putting your money internationally. Does that make sense? But you need to diversify yourself in the market that you live in before you start trying to diversify yourself in countries you can't even get to. Steven says, I'll put all foreign investments under the name of my turtle. I would creatively develop the name of a trust that resembles a asset holding company. That way it is not considered volatile. And then I would put all of my foreign assets into that trust because it's easier to put a trust in another country. It's easier to have access to multiple bank accounts in multiple places around the world for that trust. A non-residential trust is easy to do. I'm not going to say that it's affordable, depending on how much money you have versus how much it costs for that to be managed by a third party. Truth be told, like a lot of times you might want to build your wealth up first because like some of those trusts that I told you guys about, they charge like 1 or 2% of your overall portfolio, and you have to make more than $100,000 a year in your portfolio in order for them to take their 1 or 2%, where they're walking away with $2,000 out of your $100,000, or $20,000 off of your $1 or $2 million, right? For managing your portfolio. So you want to have enough money for them to move your money around the way you wanted to move your money around, and enough money to pay them, and enough money to pay you. Because if they're getting 1 or 2% out of your portfolio, and you want to put 50% of your dividends back into your portfolio, that means that all you got left is 48% to divide between you and whoever else are going to be beneficiaries on your portfolio, right? So you got to calculate that stuff in. And if you're trying to calculate inflation, you might want to, instead of just taking out 48, you might want to say, well, I'm only going to do 40. That way, the other 8% can offset inflation and taxation. Because trusts don't get taxed like individuals get taxed. So you might have to put 50% back into the portfolio, have 8% there for taxation and inflation, 2% there for the third party, which is 10%. So now you only got 40% to divide between you and all of the other beneficiaries that you have on there. And first beneficiary is going to be you. Your second beneficiary might be your wife. You might split your beneficiaries with your wife, and then you have the children that'll be the successor beneficiaries. And if you have grandchildren while you're still alive, they would be successor beneficiaries. And how will those dividends be divided up? All of that stuff has to be considered when you're putting this stuff together. Because when it becomes irrevocable, you know what I mean? That's going to be when you can't make any more changes. Once the rules have been set and they're non-revocable, that's when you can't make any more changes. Do you prefer dividends over growth stocks? I believe that growth stocks benefits you because growth stocks increase faster over time than dividends being handed to you. I believe both of them benefit, but I also believe that dividends are more effective for low income investors. Dividends are more effective to prevent you from selling your position. So, do I prefer dividends over growth for people who are starting up? Yes, I'm going to say dividends are way better than growth. Because even if you put stock on Netflix and say Netflix went up $500 per share not too long ago. Now, that's like a 50% boost on your stock. If you got 1,000 shares, you just went from $100,000 to like 1.5 mil, right? It just jumps. The problem is though, is that if that $500 bump that it had is the last bump that it has for another couple of years, you're not doubling your money every 2 years. It's just going up pennies at a time. Like, say, for example, gold. Gold was $200 back in the 40s and 50s. It's like $5,000 now. It took almost 70 years for the $200 per ounce gold to be valued at $5,000 an ounce. If you need money now, you're not going to wait 70 years for the gold to be worth $25,000. You're going to sell that now to pay for the shit that you got now. Growth stocks are beneficial for people who already have extra money lying around so that when they have financial complications, they don't have to touch their portfolio. Growth stocks are beneficial for individuals who will leverage that growth, borrow money against the stone, buy assets cash up front, and then pay the growth loan back with, guess what? Dividends. Because if you have $1 million growth portfolio and you borrow $500,000 against that asset, and then you go buy you $500,000 house, you own the house cash up front. But guess what now? Now you still have to pay back the $500,000 to the loan that leveraged your portfolio. So the problem is that if your $500,000 a loan is going to be $2,500 a month payment, where are you getting the $2,500 a month from? The average person that's not paying attention to this is going to be getting it straight out of their paycheck that they work for every day. But if you have dividends paying you from your portfolio, where out of your $1 million portfolio, you're getting $2,000 a month back or more from your portfolio, where at least a portion of your portfolio is dividend paying stocks. That $2,500 a month, which would ultimately be about $25,000 or $30,000 a year, would be coming from your brokerage account to pay for the capital that you borrowed against your brokerage account, which means that you borrowed money to buy a house, cash up front. The brokerage pays for the loan. You personally pay for nothing. You've got a house free and clear where the debt and the asset are separate, and the entity that is paying for the debt is not you. That is why I say that the dividends are more valuable than the growth. Because while the growth is needed, the only two times that you benefit from the growth is when you leverage it against a cash loan and when you sell it to make a profit. But the double-edged sword of when you leverage it against a cash loan is who the fuck is going to pay back the cash loan? And if you're not paying back the cash loan and you put up 100% of your assets for 50% of its value, you're giving away twice as much stuff for half the cost if you're not going to pay it all back. So that's going to be the issue. Because the problem is that the United States dollar is going to be weaker in the future. That doesn't matter if the United States dollar is going to be weaker in the future. Right now, in the present, the United States dollar, you can probably bring one US dollar to get close to 100 yen. You can probably bring a US dollar somewhere and get close to 150 to 1,000 yen. I mean, not yen, won. I don't know the exact calculations. Michael can tell me what the exact calculations are. But what matters is that even if it's going to be quote unquote weaker due to geopolitical trades, it could be weaker due to inflation, it could be weaker due to a lot of things. What matters is that if you build your US dollar value in the United States now and you make it to that quarter million, $500,000 in 5 or 10 or 20 years, you got $250,000, you got $500,000, you got $1 million. What that will buy based on inflation, based on devaluations of US dollars, that's going to be dependent on the market at that time. But you're not going to tell me that exactly. Steven says they keep printing money. You're not going to tell me that because the United States dollar is going to lose monetary value over the course of the next 50 years, that it's not a good idea for you to invest in the American market right now while Donald Trump is pissing on everybody's back lawn. The fact is that right now, in the most volatile times in this country, where the stocks that you see going across the screen are worth almost 10% of what they used to be valued at, these undervalued stocks that are high dividend paying stocks, where some of these stocks are still paying 20% return on investment, now is the time to get those stocks so that when the stock rebalances itself back to normal, where those 20% stocks are going to be valued at 10 and 12%, you're going to be locked in at 20%. It doesn't matter if the United States dollar is not going to be valuable in 20 years. What matters is that in 20 years, you got $1.5 million. So even if it's worth 750 grand, what matters is that you've got $1.5 million. Whatever the fuck you can accomplish with $1.5 million is way more than what you would be able to accomplish if the United States dollar devalued over the next 20 years and you're still living paycheck to paycheck in the next 20 years. That's something that I'm trying to help everybody avoid. Is that the U.S. national debt will be inflationary and dollars will go down. Well, the United States debt is sold off as a stock option, so it is lower than what it was before COVID, because back before COVID it was over $300 trillion, and because of Donald Trump it went all the way down to $30 trillion. I give every president what they're due. Donald Trump lowered the gas prices. No, Barack Obama lowered the gas prices. Donald Trump lowered the United States debt, because we were like $300 trillion back in the day, and we're all the way down to $30 trillion. Now, because of this war, we might creep up to like $50 trillion. But I mean, with all of the cost of tariffs and everything to that effect, even if it stayed around $30 trillion, since he's cutting back on a lot of government resources, the fact is that $30 trillion is where we've been since Donald Trump was the first president, and not since Donald Trump was president the first time. And I don't see us going back up to $300 trillion unless Kamala Harris gets into office. That's my observation. Now, That doesn't change the fact, though, that you yourself can make yourself a millionaire and not have to worry about where the money goes and where the money comes from. Because if you're living off of the interest, if you made it to $1 million in 20 years, and let's say you're getting back 10% interest on your investment, let's say you're getting back like 15% interest, and after you're still getting $100,000 a year back off of your principal investment, where you never have to touch your principal, but you can create a lifestyle inside of that $100,000 a year that maintains whatever standard of living you have in the United States and gives you money to travel to other countries and live in another country and maintain your standard of living in that country. Would it matter how much less the United States dollar is worth in 2046 than what it would be today? Would it matter? Because spend all the money and leave a big term insurance for your kids. That's something that some of the wealthy people doing. I was supposed to be covering a show about the 7702, where the life insurance policies that are designed for living life insurance, not so much death benefits, where people invest everything into the insurance policy up front so that they can borrow against the insurance policy. And then when you borrow against the insurance policy, what they usually do, they borrow against the insurance policy 100% of the money or like all of what they can borrow, and then like let it go, right? Where the the money borrowed against the policy is just money owed. So since you borrowed it out of the policy after you put it into the policy, it's not a profit, and then you take it and you go buy assets. Now, if you maintain that insurance policy, you will be paying back 200% or whatever like that interest on those insurance policies until the time that you pass. And when you pass over, any unpaid debt that is owed to your insurance policy will come out of the principal because you put the principal in there. You just borrowed against the principal, and then you're in a situation where, I mean, your kids have assets again separate from the debt. Now, one of the things that I talked about before was, instead of you doing all of that drama with a life insurance policy, since you have to put the money into the life insurance policy to borrow it out, you could structure a trust that has an interest gaining loan policy that allows for the beneficiaries to borrow up to a certain percentage of the available capital in the policy. You can have conditions in the trust policy to prevent somebody from borrowing money from the trust and never giving it back. If they are a paid beneficiary from the policy, you can have them borrow money from the policy and then take what they owe to the trust out of their dividend, or not their dividend, their beneficiary distribution. So say you borrowed $500,000 from the trust because the trust has $1 million of disposable capital to the beneficiaries. Well, everybody else is going to get theirs, $500,000 that goes to the rest of the group, but you borrowed a 500,000, and out of that 500,000, if you now owe $2,000 or $5,000 a month back to the trust, instead of you being forced to give it back to the trust can take it out of what it would have gave you until it pays itself back with interest. And you can set the interest rates at whatever you want to set the interest rates at, and put you in a position where somebody, and then they not only can they not borrow against the trust again until they pay back what they borrowed the first time, they won't receive a distribution from the trust until the debt is paid in full, either by their share of distributions or by them actually paying off the trust on their own. You can put that verbiage into your trust and then do the exact same thing and not have to waste all this effort with setting up. Where the biggest concern that I have with that is that you're going to be paying premiums on the existence of the policy, regardless of what you do with it. Because you borrowed the money from somewhere, it's not a profit. And because you owe that money to something, it's a debt. And if you're paying on that debt, it's deductible. That doesn't matter where you borrow from. That's a universal expectation with tax laws. You know, you can't borrow money directly from yourself and pay yourself back and call that a loan. But if you borrow money from a third party entity, a trust that has its own tax identification number, and then you're paying that money back to that trust, that's debt paid. And you're going to claim that on your taxes. But yeah, that's what they would do. They would leave a big term debt on their insurance. They die. Some of the death benefit is there to cover their funeral regardless. And then the term life insurance policy resolves itself, and then the kids keep all of the assets, and whatever capital that's not there covers whatever they owe. That way, there's no issues. You're looking forward to that lecture about the life insurance policies. I'm going to try to make that one very eventful. Is that my dad is at the sunset of his life. He's at the sunset of his life. All right. And I can talk him into getting life insurance. He is paranoid. Okay. I was actually just talking to somebody earlier today. Um, if you've got a house that's got a mortgage on it and you're likely to collect that house, this actually might be beneficial for you. There are some insurance policies that cover the mortgage, where if in the event that for any reason you can't pay the mortgage, they will cover the difference of the mortgage, or in the event that you pass, they will pay off the remaining balance of the mortgage, and you just pay a monthly premium on that insurance policy. Now, the offer that's there, from what I talked to the people about, because they brought it to my attention earlier today, is that if you pay off the house without actually needing the insurance policy, the money that you put into the insurance policy, they reimburse you. So it's almost like no money lost. But clearly, they're going to turn a profit on the money that they're getting from you, because they're leveraging you. A what if? For individuals where the house is mortgaged in the name of an elderly family member, where the family member is not going to outlive the mortgage. You got a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. Your family member is not going to likely live another 30 years. They're probably going to pass before the mortgage is up. You're guaranteed. It's like, well, as soon as they pass, the house is paid off. It is what it is. Now, under those dynamics, you're in a situation where would it be better for you to throw them into a life insurance policy, or would it be better for you to throw the money into a brokerage account? I've come to find that some life insurance policies charge you a shit ton of money. Depending on the age, especially when you're over the age of 70 years old, they put you in term life insurance policies. And the problem with term life insurance policies is that if you outlive the policy, you lose the benefit. So what you have to do is you have to renew the term life policy and pay whatever you got to pay to renew the term life policy. So if you do a 10-year term life, if you're 70, you do a 10-year term life at 78 or 79, you need to renew your term life for 10 years, right? Or another 5 years or so. And just and then when you think about that, you're doing what, 100,000, 200,000, $300,000 term life policy. You're not always doing like a million, 2 million, $3 million term life policy. And depending on how much the money back you're supposed to get off of that term life policy depends on your monthly payments. The older you get, the higher the payments are. You might find yourself paying five, seven, $900 a month on term life insurance, especially if they have bad health, if they're smokers and other stuff to that effect. You might be paying two, $300 a month on a term life. But if you're paying $500 a month in a brokerage account that's paying you 15% return, see what I'm saying? You start putting up 6 grand a month and you're getting back more than 10% return, which means you're getting back 660 or 6,600 every time you invest. You know what I mean? In 10 years, that's $66,000. In 20 years, that's $120,000, $32,000. So if you had $100,000 term policy that you wrote, or $150,000 term policy that you wrote for 15 to 20 years, but you can double down on your brokerage account and you can make that exact same value off of a brokerage account, why go through all that money for a term policy? Why not throw the money down into a trust that's throwing the money down into a brokerage account that's going to pay the trust, where the 2% for the third party that's managing your money for you, now you got basically an accountant, because now you don't have to do shit. They're going to send you spending money and everything else is covered. And if the house is in the trust and the lights, water, gas bill, property taxes, and property maintenance is all covered under the trust, you don't got to do shit. You just collect a check. Trust fund kids have a tendency to mess up life. My trust would have to fund my vision and a little bit to the kids one day when I have them. So that's exactly how the trust would be structured. It should be structured in a way where it is not going to carry them without responsibility, but it will be a safety net to their lack of responsibility. So you might issue them a minimum $2,000 a month. In some states, that's enough to live off of. But in other states, that'll be enough to keep you from being homeless, but not enough for you to be balling out of control, right? The kids still have to get a job, but even if they got a minimum wage job, they're subsidized by the $2,000 a month trust. So they might be making $2,000 a month working at a whatever, or $5,000 a month working at a whatever. And standard of living requires them to make $7,000 a month. And $2,000 a month covering the spread, and they're not suffering. They don't have to date somebody they don't like to cover their bills. They don't have to marry somebody they don't like to cover their bills. The difference between what they make versus what the trust brings in could offset them enough to keep them stable. You can have a tier system in your trust where the more successful they become, the more money you release to them, stuff to that effect. You can, section off a percentage of it and say, well, 10% of it will be allocated towards, Lil Timmy, but out of that 10%, only 1 or 2% of it will be issued every month until the age of whatever. And then after that age, only 5% of it will be issued until such and such age. So like every 5 years or every 10 years, they get an increase in money, which offsets inflation and bad decision making skills. He said the old man just has a trailer. He's not well off. It don't matter. He does not own the land. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you can set it up where if you was able to get the old man into a situation where you own something, you could set it up that way. If not, if it's cheaper for you to throw him into a life insurance policy, throw him into a life insurance policy. Make yourself the beneficiary. Or if you can build a trust, put him in a life insurance policy, put the money into the trust. Either way it goes, if you're the successor beneficiary to his revocable trust, which that's interesting enough because you can make it you can make a revocable trust for him and then make yourself the secondary trustee. He can be the primary trustee. You're the successor beneficiary. He's the beneficiary. When he passes, it becomes a irrevocable trust. You become the first trustee. You can appoint a second trustee, and everything goes to you as you now becoming the primary beneficiary. There's a way that you can set everything up. You just got to organize it all the way you think it should go, put all the details in there the way you think it should go, and then take the final draft where you've done your 50, 75, 125-page document, bring it to an estate lawyer and have them verify what you did to make sure that it is in line with all of the laws in the state and the country that you're in, and then have them put their rubber stamp on it. They'll keep a copy of it on file, which protects you. And now you've got you a trust. He said, so you can have an insurance that pays off the mortgage and the kids get it free and clear. I just found out today that there is insurance coverage for your mortgage that covers the house in a way where if in the event that the borrower dies, the insurance policy pays off the mortgage, which protects the lender. Because since the it protects the lender, which might make the lender nicer to you, because if you die, the bill goes unpaid. With an insurance policy that says, well, if you die, I'll pay it off for you. Now you tell the lender, hey, I've got X, Y, and Z set up. If I die, you still get paid in full for the house. That puts checks and balances in place to protect the lender, but being able to protect the lender in that fashion makes you a better candidate the next time you go to borrow. It also puts you in a better position with your mortgage, because if the insurance policy is going to pay the difference, and say you got a $200,000 house, and they say, well, we're going to put away $200,000 to cover your house, so if something happens, we pay off your house. Okay, great. Well, if I paid 75 or $100,000 on a house, or if a relative of mine was paying $100,000 towards the house, they put away $200,000 for the house. My relative dies, and now they're going to pay off the remaining $100,000 and give me the difference. I just got $100,000 because my relative died and the house is paid off. That type of insurance policy, that's way, in my opinion, way better than a life insurance policy, because from what I was told, certain premiums might be allegedly around $20 a month. You're not going to find a health insurance policy, life insurance policy. It's like, oh, hey, give me $20 a month. We'll cover you 200, 300, 500 grand. What? Sign me the fuck up. And we're going to test this theory. So when people start passing over, it's like, hey, he's dead. What do you do? But in these particular situations, one of the best ways for you to keep yourself in the best light possible, first and foremost, you must get the contract, scan it into the computer, save it on a PDF file. You want to be able to have the original document accessible to you. I know a lot of people like getting shit in paper, but you and I both know that after a while, paper gets lost. It's in the house somewhere. It's piled up in a room full of papers. We don't have our papers organized, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves emptying out a bunch of papers because it's in the way, and then we end up throwing away something important, and then we don't have it anymore. We don't know where the original contract is. Somebody new's working, the person who sold it to us not there anymore, and the situation falls apart. Your best bet is to keep good records. Anything that is still active, you want to have the original contract accessible within hand reach, which means that if it's not on a PDF file in your computer, on a backup drive somewhere, you have a copy on, you can access it after a flood and say, hey, I still got coverage. Right. So you want to make sure that you cover that. So there was a situation. So what I was covering a moment ago, Trump was talking about the um long-term prayer day, and uh I don't understand what they're going to be doing with the Christian nationalism, but for some reason he continues to blur the lines uh, of church versus state, and I'm probably going to have to do a whole show to cover like exactly how does that impact us on a regular basis. But it is something that we do need to pay attention to. Is that I'm the family working to break the poverty cycle. Look, hey, I'm that one. I'm the one in my first generation breaking the poverty cycle. Yeah, I know. And the only way the less difficult way for you to break the poverty cycle is for you to put one of the most recent family members on a life insurance policy so that when they die you get the money. But you have to look at opportunity cost. Is the amount of money that you're going to get from that life insurance policy, be it tax free or not, going to be more or less or the same as if you were paying taxes on a brokerage account that will be giving you dividends every year as you build up the revenue? That's what you want to find out. So if you can get $1 million policy where you're only paying like $300 a month, that's like um 36,000 a year. Or no, 300 a month is like 3,600 a year. Yeah, 3,600 a year. So over the course of 10 years, it's $36,000. If you've got $1 million policy that's going to pay you $1 million in 10 years, and your dad passes in 10 years, that's a profit. Now, if you got a $250,000 policy for 20 years, and your pops is going to last another 20 years, and you're paying that same amount of money where you just put up almost $200,000, where you're likely going to break even in 20 years, where they're just going to give you back all the money you gave them. You could have put it in a brokerage account. You could have potentially gotten more than that. You probably should have tried the brokerage account. So what you do is you look at how much are they going to give you? How long is it going to take for you to get it? What you believe, what do you personally believe the life expectancy is of your pops? We're not talking about unexpected natural disaster. We're not talking about car accident tomorrow. We're talking about, he goes to bed one day and he doesn't wake up the next kind of situation. How long do you think it's going to take before that happens? If you think that you got another 15 years left in him, you might want to run the brokerage account. You think he's got like 5 or 10 years left in him? You might want to run a life insurance policy because it's the difference, the opportunity cost difference between the monthly installments on a life insurance policy versus the opportunity cost of the quantity of profit you can get back from investing in a brokerage account. That's what you want to balance the difference of. He said, save cloud, and when it gets hacked one day, it's all save it to the cloud. You can save it to the cloud, but you also have to recognize that, well, first of all, it's a document that really gives you legal authority for whatever it is that you're about to do. So not too many people hack the ownership of a property. Now, if you've got a $40 million whatever, they might try to fuck that up. But to be fair, when you're talking about, a $500,000 house, $250,000 house, two cars, three cars, some furniture, 200 grand to pay for everything, ain't that much stuff going on. And really all it says is who's in charge of it. That's what it is. It's a trust is another way to create a living will that doesn't have an estate attorney handling probate. That's really what it is. It's another way to establish a living will. The difference between the two is that unless you're paying a third party to handle things, you don't have anybody else messing with your stuff until you assign somebody to do it. A living will, you have an estate attorney where you write a piece of paper that says who gets what, and then you pay them, and then you pay the government to make sure that everybody has legal change of ownership of the assets. But when you put everything in the ownership of the trust says, I trust this guy to make sure that whoever has the right to whatever gets whatever they're supposed to get. And certain third party entities charge 1 to 2% for that particular purpose. But outside of that, they will handle the taxes for the property. They will take care of whatever they need to take care of. Whatever the contract says do, that's what they will make sure happens. And whoever benefits will only be allowed to benefit from whatever's in the contract, terms and conditions, just like the girlfriend contract. And it's not something that's like, oh, I can, dismantle this and get my whatever that I didn't put into it. That's not the same. He said, midterm elections probably have something to do with National Prayer Day. I don't know. Midterm elections are supposed to be November 23rd, and with the way that they're changing the um, Democratic and Republican lines in the sand in certain states to potentially sway the ability to get that third term, there's a strong possibility that anything can happen. But I believe that there's a different agenda about National Prayer Day. But it's an overall political position to bring America back to its core, and that's going to require a whole lot of um, it's got to bring it back to the old school, because remember back in the day when we used to say the national anthem and do the Pledge of Allegiance in elementary school, and you don't see too much of that these days. Um, we used to have in certain scenarios we used to have like open prayer in certain places that we don't have anymore. The United States dollar is no longer backed by gold; is backed by faith, right? So everything that Donald Trump does is kind of just like kind of throws it. It mixes church and state back into one another, and I'm not sure why he's doing that yet. But I can do a deep dive about it, and then I can kind of give you a heads up as to what I think might be the culprit, and I can kind of throw that into next Monday's show along with whatever I was planning on talking about for next Monday's show. Steven says he thinks someone will try to knock him off, so he's refusing to do so. Well, certain life insurance policies are not going to allow unnatural deaths. So when you think about that, when you think about natural death, unnatural deaths, if you think somebody's going to knock them off, one of the things that you should probably think about is investing in a brokerage account and taking extra capital from him and putting it into that brokerage account, so that whenever he does get knocked off, you have whatever he gave you. Is any assets in your name a no go? I mean, you have assets in your name if you want to, but one of the things that I've come to find when it comes down to taking your carbon footprint or your You're taking your identity off of the internet. Everything that your name is attached to is going to be attached to public record. Whoever owns the house, their name is going to be on the house. Whoever owns the car, their name is going to be on the registration on file. Even if the registration expires, the last person to own the vehicle is the last person to own the vehicle. Doesn't matter where the vehicle is. The last person to own the vehicle is the person who owns the vehicle. Um, so for personal reasons, if you don't want to be in the public view, it would be in your best interest to minimize the things that you have directly in your name. So you can register your vehicles to a trust, or you can register your vehicles to a business, or you can register your vehicles to a trust, lease it to the business, and then have the contract layered to where legal liability stops at the business. Then you can drive the vehicle as an employee of your business, where you're still legally driving the vehicle, but your name is not on the car insurance, your name is not on the registration, but it's your car. You have the keys, the vehicle's not reported stolen, but it's your car. Um, One of the funny things about that is that if they think that you are misappropriating your company car and you might get fired for that, they will give you false threats in the traffic stop about your boss finding out about it, and they'll cut you more slack in that situation and less legal headache, because instead of you being an asshole with your own personal vehicle, you are being an asshole risking your actual employment, and you recognize the error of your ways and you don't want to lose your job, and they don't want you to lose your job, because how the fuck are you going to keep paying tickets if you don't have a job anymore? So they, depending on what you're getting in trouble for, will treat you differently if it is a work vehicle that you are operating when you get pulled over. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to cut you a lot of slack for DUI, but if you have a speeding ticket and you were late to go pick up a product, or if they were, or something like that, if you made a hard turn or some shit like that, and you were rushing to get to a meeting or something like that, and your job is on the line, they got you on academic probation, you don't want to lose your job, you got a mortgage, you got a kid, you got, you start really giving this cop like enough stress for them to be like, shit, look, dude, I'm gonna give you a warning, but slow down. You can probably, because they're only going to hold you long enough to prove that the car's not stolen, and you can either walk away with that with a mild ticket, or like walk away with that with even just a verbal warning and no problem at all. But if it's your car, your name pops up on a license plate, the problem that you have now is a preconditioned disposition. They know who's behind the wheel of the car because they reasonably believe that the average American drives their own shit. So if they've got a problem with you and your name and face came up on the license plate of the vehicle, they know exactly who they're fucking with. Now the problem is that if you have firearms registered to your name, they know you've got guns in the car, because the average person that owns a gun keeps the gun with them. So when they come to the car, the heightened level of hostility that they have when they approach the car is going to be based off of whatever arrest record you have, even if you have no convictions, whatever firearms are registered under your name, whatever interactions you've had with police officers in the past, and if there's any warrants, any suspensions of license, if there's any back child support, any other legal action that requires them to do stuff to you, they're going to come to the car with a fucked up attitude because they already know who you are. But if it belongs to a business, if you were driving a car that was owned by Walmart, registered to a post office box, they don't know who the fuck is behind the wheel of the car. You just reassure them that you have legal authority to drive this vehicle. That's it. So they're coming to the car confused. That's a way better behavior pattern, because they're pulling you over because they didn't like the way the car was moving. They don't know who the fuck owns the car, but it's not stolen, and they just want to make sure that you don't have a warrant out for your arrest. That's a completely different discussion. So is having its assets in your name a no-go? Technically, no. But guess what? If you fuck up and you crash into somebody, they can sue you and take everything that you are attached to as an authorized user of. So if you're the primary trustee of a trust, they can fuck you over on your trust. If the third party, if the trust has an EIN on its own EIN number, and a third party handles the trust, the third party owns the house, the third party owns this, the third party owns that, They can't take shit from you using it, but it's not yours, right? So one of the things I would do is if I'm going to put the car in a trust, I'm going to put the car in a trust separate from other assets. That way, the only thing that they can take is whatever the fuck the car is attached to. Or if I'm going to have the car attached to a business and I'll have the rest of the assets attached to a trust. So if they come after the owner of the car, they're going after the business. They can't go after me because I don't own shit. So in that dynamic, can my wife divorce me and take half of my nothing? In that scenario, probably shouldn't own shit. Can somebody jump out in front of my car and try to sue me for half of nothing? Probably shouldn't own your own shit. Back in the hood, in the old days, they used to take everything and put it in their mom and them name. They would buy all kind of cars, houses, trucks, everything. Buy all the stuff cash up front and put it in their family member's name. By putting it in their family member's name, when they went to jail for drug charges and shit, they were not affiliated with the owner of the assets. So when they got out of jail, the houses, the cars, and all of the stuff that they bought with drug money was still there. Because unless law enforcement tied the ownership of these assets to the behavior patterns of this person, they wouldn't seize it. Michael says, Steven says, it used to come over the loudspeaker. All students had to stand. I remember them days. He said, I would prefer that the dollar is backed by gold rather than faith in the United States government. It's not just backed by faith, but it is backed by faith. The United States dollar is backed. The United States dollar is a debt receipt. That's what currency is. It's a debt receipt. And then the United States dollar is backed by investors. So you've got $30 trillion worth of money that is backed by $30 trillion of investors. Look at the treasury bonds. That's what you're doing. You are buying U.S. debt when you're buying treasury bonds. You're buying shares of the debt, and the government is promising you to pay you back your money. Whenever they're finished with it. The car belongs to Walmart. That's brilliant. I'm just being honest, bro. I'm just being honest. It's the thing. It's just like I told you guys before that you can use your post office box as a physical address. You have the street address of the post office box, the street address of the post office, your post office box as the apartment number, and then city, state, zip code. They will mail your legal documents directly to your post office, and your post office will put it directly into your post office box. You don't have to use the address that you sleep at. You don't have to do that. There are like 44 states in this country that allows for people to use alternative addresses as their legal residence, specifically people that are victims of domestic violence and other violent crimes, witness protection, and other such things. So, since the law allows for circumstantial situations where you don't use your primary address as your primary address, the fact is that no police officer and no judge will analyze your personal situation to determine if you are legally required to have a different address. So if the cop pulls you over and asks you, is this your address? One, you should say, I don't answer questions without a lawyer. But two, if you answer the question, all of the information on the ID card is accurate. Is it my current address? Is not what I said. It is accurate information. It's accurate, which means that if you mail me a court order to that address, I will get it. Is that my address? I didn't answer that question. But if you mail me a document, I will mail you back a response. That's the best information that I can give you. But truth be told, I'm not answering any questions without a lawyer present. So in the sense, because really, especially in places like Florida with the traffic cameras and stuff, when they mail you a traffic ticket, it goes to the post office box. You check the post office box, you get the ticket, you pay the citation. That's really your legal obligation for an address, is so that they can know where to send legal correspondence to. That's what they attach that address to your license plate for, so that when your car is involved in a legal infraction, that they can mail you legal documents related to what your car was involved in. That's what it's for. Now, somebody's going to come and try to say, oh, that's not what it's supposed to be for. Yeah, but that's in practice what it is. You get parking tickets and traffic tickets in the mail because of what's on your license plate. And what's on your license plate is the address for them to mail you shit. 40, 50, 60 years ago, they used to mail it directly to your house. But in 2026, ask yourself, what judge puts their physical address on the docket? What attorney puts their physical address on a court order? What politician puts their physical address in public record? Nobody. They put their main office, that's where they collect their mail, at their main office. I don't know how the fuck they get personal bills, but on public record, the office is where they collect their bills. That's what the office is, where they collect everything that requires you to notify them about anything. So you can have a house in a different state, but this state, this city, this post office box, that's where my mail goes. FX Trader says, at what level of wealth do you need the trust? Okay, we have gone way off kilter when it comes down to talking about Donald Trump going to China, but we're almost done with talking about China anyway. So it depends on what you're getting the trust for. So if you have a house and that house can be litigated because you have siblings, you want to get a trust. If you have a house and that house could be litigated because you have more than one child, you want to get a trust. If you have a house and you have a wife or a husband, you want to get a trust. If you're talking about just money, as I've explained before, certain entities typically start at between $100,000 and $250,000 because they take 1 to 2% of your money every year out of your money to handle your money. So can you create a land trust, then create a trust for your vehicles, then create a trust for your businesses, intertwine them? Yes, because the beneficiary of one trust can be another trust. The beneficiary of the trustee of one trust can be the beneficiary of another. Well, I wouldn't make the trustee specifically because that means that the employees are getting paid from my trust. But what I'm saying is that if you have a land trust and the land trust leases the land to the beneficiary, the beneficiary, depending on how you create the land trust, can be responsible for the property while the property is being utilized as a homestead. In that particular dynamic, any tax deductions that you get for paying the mortgage, any tax deductions or exemptions that you get for utilizing the house as a homestead, you benefit from that, right? But when the house is abandoned, the trustee takes over the house. So now instead of you having a house 100 years old, vines growing up the side of the building looking like Rapunzel, the house is in mint condition when a relative comes back to that house. So if you're doing it that way, yeah, and then if you have a business and you sell like 95% of the shares of the business to the trust primarily owns the business can take the profits from the business and put it into the trust can take that money and send it to a beneficiary, and in that situation, the beneficiary can be another trust. That trust can be the trust for the cash. So the real estate trust and the business trust, two different trusts. You can have a asset trust for just the cars, where the cars are leased from this trust to the business, where the profits from leasing the car to the business goes to the trust that maintenances all the cars. You get into a car accident, the only thing that's going to be up for grabs is the cars in the trust, not the house, because that's a different trust, not the business because that's a different location, not the cash because that's a different trust, right? Checks and balances, extra layers and barriers, right? And if you're leasing the car to the trust, and then the business is leasing the vehicle to the employee, the employee can lease the car from the which now I got the car, and I'm leasing the car from the business, and the business is leasing the car from the trust. I'm separating authority. versus legal liability. But whoever's got the whoever's got the first line of lawsuit defense against the asset is going to be the person that protects the trust from getting sued, right? Which means that all the other cars in the trust are safe because this car is liable to the business, or this car is liable to the person that works for the business that has the car, which means the business doesn't get sued and the trust doesn't get sued, right? And the cash is in another trust. And you can still have the cash in a completely separate trust, probably in a completely separate country where that cash is issued to you as an allowance, where when the money does come in, it subsidizes whatever it's going to subsidize, right? So when is the best level to start up a trust? The best level to start up a revocable trust is when you have something worth taking from you. The best level to start up a complex trust is when you have money and assets, when you have houses, cars, cash, stock options, everything to that effect. What amount is a good amount to get a third party trustee to oversee your shit? $250,000. Because do you want to pay 1% of $10,000 to a trustee? And they already, I've done some research, and base level, they typically don't handle from third party with the 1%, anything under $100,000, depending on where you go, right? Especially when they have to every month do stuff. They got to get some money out of it. They got to get paid out of it, right? So when you're looking at 100 or $200,000, where they're getting 2% out of $200,000, that might be 40 grand. That's a salary for an accountant to handle your affairs. So the short answer is when you can afford it. That's the that's the best time to get it. When you can afford it, and when there's something worth protecting, that's when you get a trust. You don't treat trust like savings accounts. You get them because they're free, and if you need it, you can use it. That's not what a trust is for. You get it because you need something protected from lawsuits, from litigation, from divorce, from probate. If either you're trying to get it from the last generation or you're trying to give it specifically to somebody in the next generation, when you have something worth taking from you or something worth losing, something worth protecting, that's when you get a trust as soon as you can afford it. So if all you got is one house and a bunch of beat up cars, and the house is the only thing of value, now's a good time to get you a land trust. If you got one old school antique car worth 40 grand, now's the time to get you a trust. Will that car to your kids. Matter of fact, there is a gun trust, which is separate from other trusts, where once you establish this gun trust, you can make anybody the beneficiary of that gun trust, which means that once they inherit all of these guns from the trust, they can do whatever the fuck they want with them. It is a legal way to pass stuff from person to person without getting the government involved. He said, I read that the rich set up a so-called family office to handle investments starting from $5 million. I can look into exactly what all a family office would entail, but basically that is going to be a very complex trust. But when you have $5 million worth of assets and you have a family legacy, typically with $5 million, you might have 20 people or more involved with that. Certain conditions apply, like everybody's got to have a life insurance policy on them. The trust must be the sole beneficiary of that life insurance policy, so that when people in the family die, it puts more money into this collective, so that there's money to be invested and distributed to the next generations. Yeah, yeah. But at $5 million, if somebody's getting 1 to 2% of that $5 million, they're getting a couple $100,000 to manage your estate. But it is privately operated, not run by the government. Big difference. It's going to be the form of it's going to be a variation of a trust. There, okay, so the term family office, I have not heard the term family office as a legal binding document or business entity of any sort. So it would be the nickname of the type of structure that would handle all investment opportunities and certain assets inside of an estate, which would be all of the assets of this group of people that is identified as a family, a trust. So, like I said, I can get a lot more details about that, throw that into the membership about it. And then one of the upcoming future Tuesdays, I can give you the details of exactly what a family office is and provide any updated clarification if I may be mistaken. But from what I've done my digging of, there's very complex trusts that exist with spendthrift and all of these other terminology, non-residential. If the trust is established in a country you don't live in, you want to get it tax exempt or tax deferred and all this other stuff. There's so much dialogue and verbiage in there. There are trusts that can be established for nonprofits, but those nonprofits are supposed to be church-driven entities and supposed to be utilized for nonprofit purposes exclusively, not for personal gain. So there's a lot of stuff involved with certain types of trusts and certain types of structures. But the core structure that you need is to make sure that there's a specific person that is responsible for handling the property, whatever that property is, whether it's the house, the car, the money, and then how they're supposed to handle it. Regular maintenance, um, taxes, titles, registrations, updated deeds, HOAs, utilities, whatever's supposed to be done on a regular basis is supposed to be done a certain way, and that is supposed to be detailed in the document before the original creator of the document dies. Because it goes from being revocable to irrevocable when the original creator dies. The It only handles private assets of the family. Well, um, so it's going to handle what the family owns. So you have to understand what private assets mean. If I own the business itself, that's my business. If I am one of the shareholders of the business, that's a public entity, a commercial property, right? It will handle my car, my house, my boat, my stock options, my health insurance, life insurance policies, or whatever. It'll handle all of those same things for my wife and kids, my grandparents, my great grandchildren. It'll handle for all of that. It'll handle whatever I own exclusively. It will handle that privately. Now, collectively, if I am one of many, where, say, for example, I might be a dominant shareholder of Apple, that's a publicly traded entity. It's not gonna fuck with that. It'll collect the shares on my behalf, though. It'll collect the dividends that are being paid to me on my behalf, though. But will this manage that company? No, no. But let's say that I have an orange grove that sells oranges to the local market. I own that by myself. I would have been operating that. It would operate that. It would delegate instructions because whatever I exclusively have the rights to, or whatever my family exclusively has the rights to, if my family would have been delegating it, this third party entity would be delegating that. And that's basically what you're doing. You're creating a type of trust where you're assigning a party that has no real interest in my stuff to handle my affairs on my behalf. It is a very, very complicated and detailed accountant. It's like a personal assistant accountant. This is why wealthy people can walk around life without having to think about a lot of things, not because they're not smart, but because somebody is being paid to think about that for them. Donald Trump doesn't have to care about which house gets paid in which city and which state. Somebody's getting paid to do that. If he wants a certain quantity of money, he makes a phone call, tell them, I want X, Y, and Z dollars. And they will tell him how long it'll take for him to collect it and for them to collect it and provide it to him. That's it. If he wants it sooner, then they will see what they can do to pull strings, but there's a limit to how fast they can get a certain quantity of capital to him in real dollars. Now, when you start talking about wire transfer, yeah, we can pull from X, Y, and Z bank account and get it there in minutes. But if you want me to give you like 20 briefcases of cash, you're probably going to have to wait a couple days or a couple weeks, depending on what it is, right? If I understand now. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff behind that, but I'm glad that you asked about that. That is actually a fantastic financial observation, and I do believe that that's the type of topic that we do need to cover. But when you start talking about starting from $5 million, the baseline for a structure of that magnitude is $5 million. So if you have $1 million, would you be trying to establish something like that? Not yet. You would probably get the outline paperwork together for it so that when you cross over that $5 million threshold, you might be able to get started on it. If it is a growing entity that will grow into the $5 million scenario, you might have a trustee over this particular documentation where once your assets cross that $5 million status, that the trustee implements this documentation where the trustee takes over both of them and gets paid twice. You can do that too. As far as contracts are concerned, you're legally able to do anything that doesn't negatively impact somebody else on a legal standard. So as long as you're not committing fraud and as long as you're not fucking somebody else over, the ultimate observation is that you can draft a contract about anything that is exclusively designed to determine how assets are managed or controlled. That's why I tell you guys about the girlfriend contract, because the girlfriend contract is not about how often she sleeps with you and whether or not she cooks for you or not. The girlfriend contract is about what stuff belonged to you when y'all started dating and what stuff belonged to her when y'all started dating and who takes what when y'all break up. If she puts money into the relationship, where does it go? Because if she gives you money because you didn't have enough money to buy dinner, she can't say that that money went towards your car note to say that now she has equity stake in your car. You have to be able to show that when she uses your car, so she leases your car, and the money that she gives you for your car is for the leased usage, not equity stake in your car. That's what the contract is for. It says he didn't put anything towards ownership. That girlfriend contract will say the same thing about the house. Well, you own the house. She's living in your house, but she's not living in your house and giving you money because she lives in your house. She's living in your house and she's paying rent for living in your house, which is not giving me money for equity stake. If she's living in my house for free and cleaning up and everything like that, she's not working for equity stake. She is working for and contributing to room and board for renting or leasing possession of premises, which is not equity stake. So when we separate, you have no shares of the house, you have no shares of the car, you have no shares of the trust, you have no shares of this, no shares of that, which means that when you leave, you don't get shit because she signed a contract. He said the way things are today, the girlfriend contract makes a lot of sense. I'm sure women love that. Women fucking hate it. They hate prenups. They hate girlfriend contracts. But when a woman that thinks about being an alpha boss lady looks at that girlfriend contract where she structures it in a way where her boyfriend can't run off with all of her shit, they will fucking love it. Because when you start talking about drafting a contract in modern era, it's not just about avoiding the gold diggers. It is about recognizing that in modern 2026, the family law is the division of property, and family law is not gender biased. Family law was designed back in the day that when the person with the most assets divorces or leaves the person with the least assets, that they divide the assets between the two of them so that the one that has less has enough to survive. Back in the day when those laws were created, women did not have jobs because they surrendered their jobs to be the caretaker of the house. And then if the man leaves and takes his money, the woman is homeless. So the laws were designed to take money from the man to subsidize the living for the woman so that the woman who could not work could still be able to manage a reasonable lifestyle after the divorce because she had no other alternative to survive. In modern 2026, women have jobs when they divorce the man, so they supplement the income with alimony. But in modern 2026, women also have the ability to make more money than men. Therefore, she leaves him, if she's $130,000 a year man, he now has the legal right to take a subsidy from her. So if women recognize that that girlfriend contract can be recalibrated to a boyfriend contract, where the car that she bought that he was driving around is not his car, even if he paid the note on it a couple times, it is her car. And upon separation, she gets that car back because whatever money she gave him, he borrowed the car. That was a lease or a loan scenario that wasn't towards ownership. Even if she took the money and put it directly towards the car note, the fact is that that protects her from her boyfriend taking her car, talking about some I helped pay the bill. It benefits both parties. I call it a girlfriend contract because this podcast is strategically designed to help men become higher value men and to help men reevaluate how they do things in life, because this is a male driven podcast from the male's perspective. So while the information benefits women as well, I'm really here for the fellas. Women seem to want to have it both ways nowadays. Well, yes, they do. They're going to want the money, they're going to want the authority, but they're not going to want the responsibility that comes with it. They're not going to want the collateral damage. They're not going to want the the fallout of catastrophic failure. That's always going to be somebody else's responsibility, and I understand that. But since we recognize that as men, if we recognize that we're walking into engagements and relationships with people who don't have the same point of view that we do and don't have the same quantity of investment in a relationship as we do, because they invest effort and physical appearance, we invest capital gains, paying for everything. We provide the cars, we provide the houses more often than not. Yeah, they're going to throw up, oh, well, I give birth. Right. But I got to pay for you and the child after you give birth. I got to pay for your medical bills and the kid's medical bills after you. And then if we separate, you're going to keep the kid, not because you're a better parent, not because you have more availability, because by you keeping the kid, you get paid for the kid. No mother in history has kept the kid mother couldn't or didn't want in custody battles where the father is fighting for his child. 82% of men that fight for their children are fighting for their children and losing or timing out, where the child ages out of the system before the case closes, because the woman who has the child gets paid for the child while she has the child. Not because he couldn't do it, not because he doesn't want to do it, because she doesn't want him to do it, because the child is a paycheck. So ultimately, when a woman steps into a relationship and all she brings is her beauty, and then she's going to co-sign on that by the financial responsibility that she's putting on the husband or the boyfriend for the kid. The problem is that men have to protect themselves. Make sure that you're finding the kind of woman that has the right knowledge and skill set, not just book smarts, but real world applicable knowledge and skill sets to manage things, organize things, function in a way that benefits you, so that if there's kids involved, that you guys aren't falling apart and she's running off with half of, not all of everything. Because what sucks is that men more often than not spend 3/4 of their life getting themselves established, and then all it takes is a 2-year marriage, and now she's taking the whole house because for the sake of the child needs a place to live. She's going to keep the child so that she can get child support and then alimony. And part of the alimony is that he still has to pay the mortgage. She gets to keep the car because the child has to go to the doctor and go to school. He still has to pay for the car note. Now this man in divorce has to go rent an apartment and rent another car or lease another car and start over after the divorce. Now, granted, in 2026, this could happen to a woman just the same. But the problem is that I'm here for the men. Historically, we have always allowed ourselves to be in this position, and we don't leave the women because we don't want to be in this position. So they would stay in an unhealthy relationship. So the goal is to teach you guys, starting off with the business and politics that we were doing 2.5 hours ago, on how you're supposed to be able to change the way you make, save, and invest money, but then following back to how to change the way you make decisions in your personal life, because the way oil prices is going to go up, food prices is going to go up, inflation is going to go up, tariffs is going to make shopping go up. The Brazilian heritage and girl is buying from Istanbul is going to go up, right? So her sew-in is not going to be 600 no more. It's going to be 975, right? You got to pay inflated costs when your woman get her hair and nails done, when her weave is getting shipped in from cross country, overseas. And you as a man have to make sure that you're making the right decisions about where your money goes. So yeah, you should be establishing a trust. If your girlfriend or your wife is going to be investing in this trust, you want to have a trust contract that is designed where she's going to get guaranteed dividend installments from the trust. You know, you can create a contract that has penalties for termination. So if she wants to terminate the trust because we get divorced, there's a 15 or 20% termination fee for her from her half of the investments. And if that's going to be the kind of document that you're going to establish, then you want to make sure that you document how much money comes from each person and have a voucher that says that I so and so donated this much money this month and I so and so donated this much money this month. Sign it, notarize it, and keep it for your records so that when you do separate, you know exactly how much money each person put into the trust so that if you do liquidate the trust, whoever decides to liquidate it gets the 20% penalty out of their. So if we put up 100 grand and you want to liquidate the trust and you're going to eat that 20% penalty. So out of your 50 grand, you get 30. I keep the other 100. I mean, the other 50. Yeah, we can do that. And at the end of the day, uh, that kind of discourages the person from liquidating the trust because you're not going to void the trust contract because of divorce. You're signing an agreement that says that the trust will not be, and if you got a trust established, you're signing a fucking prenup where the prenup makes it clear that the trust will not be under any circumstances dissolved for any reason outside of accepting penalties from the person who decides to dissolve the trust, where the penalties will not go to the person dissolving the trust. So if you put up 50%, you're going from 50 down to 40. You're gonna eat 10 grand because you wanted to close this bitch down. You can close it down, but you're gonna get less than what you put in. And that is almost the same discouragement, which is why we don't pull our money out of 401ks. We don't pull our money out of IRAs. We don't pull our money out of mutual funds. We don't pull our money out of annuities. Why? Because we don't want to eat that penalty. We don't pull our money early out of CDs. We don't pull our money out of treasury bonds. Why? Because we don't want to eat that penalty. So if you structure these documents correctly, terms and conditions for usage and allocation of assets, when things stop being favorable, because everybody's willing to sign everything when everything's in their favor, but when things stop being favorable, the red line in the sand is the asterisk that shows that if you decide to default on this, you're going to fuck yourself over. Now, you're guaranteed to get comp at all times, but if you decide to fuck this up, you're going to pay the price for it, not me. Right? Is at what point in time in a relationship do you bring up the girlfriend contract? Um, so that depends on what kind of relationship that you're in. If you guys start living together, the contract should be established before she moves in. Doesn't matter if you own a place or if you rent it. If you guys are sharing financial expenses, even if you live in separate houses, your contract should be established before you start sharing financial expenses. The contract should be because again, this is going to be a division of assets. And stuff to that effect, you should have a contract for that. Because if I give you a few $100s to help you pay your car note so that your car doesn't get repoed, that doesn't mean I own your car. Legally, it means I have an equity stake in your car because I put money towards the ownership of your car. But the contract should be before I start financially investing in your assets, before you start financially investing in my assets. It should be before you move into my house, before I move into your house. And the reason being is before you put the first dollar down, I want us to get it understood that it's not for owning shit here. But if it is for owning shit here, we're going to buy a house together. We're going to go half on the house. Okay, 50-50 ownership. As a result, of that 50-50 ownership, upon termination of our relationship, we liquidate the house. But what if, upon liquidation of the relationship, we put the house up for rent and split the profits? There's always another way, but it should be before you are financially invested in the other person, before the other person is financially invested in you, because it she's got her stuff at her place, you've got your stuff at your place, and a lot of times one person moves in with the other person because their lease is up. But there are times where people decide to both abandon their apartment or their house and move into something together and consolidate stuff, where some of the things that were old, broken, that we just kept around because it was convenient, we throw it away to make space, because now we have two houses worth of stuff being crammed into one house. Your stuff needs to be itemized in the girlfriend contract. My stuff needs to be itemized in the girlfriend contract. Upon separation, we're agreeing that you're going to take your stuff, not my stuff, and I'm going to take my stuff, not your stuff, and we're going to part ways. And that's where the ownership of things comes from. Your car, my car, our car is a car that we both pay for. An addendum in the contract that says clearly that, if this is a 50-50 ownership, that you can buy out my shares of the vehicle. So if it's a $20,000 Toyota Corolla and it's a 50-50 ownership, and you want the Toyota, and you give me $10,000 and you can keep the car, or I give you $10,000 and I can keep the car, because it's not always about selling the asset. It's about giving me my money's worth out of the asset for you to keep the asset. Same thing with the house. You got a $200,000 house, 50-50 marriage. And upon liquidating, instead of liquidating the house, you can keep the house as long as you give me back my $100,000 worth of the house. Now that makes sense. You keep the house, you pay the mortgage on the house that you have. You give me my 100 grand. I take my 100 grand and I go buy me my own house. Instead of me living in a hotel until I can figure something out, you give me back my money and then I can go live somewhere else. But if that's us being prepared, most of us are not prepared. Most of us just wing it. Oh, but I love her, or oh, but I love him. And then at the end of the day, we end up in a situation where the relationship isn't what it was when it started. People are starting to bail out. And whoever is the most emotionally damaged in the relationship is going to be the most greedy, because that person wants the other person to suffer as bad as person number one is emotionally suffering. So that's going to be the person that says everything is mine, 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 mine. You get nothing. You live under an overpass in a cardboard box. And the cardboard box is mine too, right? Because they want you to suffer. So to prevent that type of behavior from happening, while everybody's happy, while everybody's in a good mood, let's get these contracts signed up. And then let's make it a ritual. Every 6 months, every year, let's update it. Every time we buy something of value, let's update it and make sure that, oh, if I bought you something, it's yours. If you bought me something, it's mine. If I bought you a dog, it's on the fucking contract. We're not going to have to talk about some, 50-50 custody of the dog. If the contract states that it's your dog, it's your fucking dog. No matter how much I love this dog, when you leave, that was bought for you. You take it and you go. If it's our dog, yeah, we got to work out sharing. But if I bought it for you, it's yours. It's not ours. It's yours. I treat it like it's ours, but it's yours. It's in the contract. And if you make a ritual while you're dating phase to itemize and separate things and document everything, by the time you get to the engagement, you're signing contracts about the wedding, you're signing contracts about the engagement ring, you're signing contracts about the wedding ring, you're making sure that everything is set up. This starts becoming a pattern of behavior. By the time you get to the marriage, guess what you got? A big ass fucking prenup with a bunch of addendums that includes every agreement you had the first day y'all got together. Now, it makes perfect sense, because upon separation, upon divorce, all of those contracts are so ironclad to, you're just going to get whatever you're going to get. There's some lawyers that can do some things, but I mean, if you've got 20 years worth of contracts, where every 6 months, that's 40 fucking contracts that shows a pattern of behavior, and the prenup that shows a pattern of behavior. And now because you're bitter, your behavior has changed. You could prove a lot of shit in the court of law when you got a pattern of behavior, right? That's why I talk to you guys about these things. So, in conclusion, if we look back at Donald Trump's state visit to China, what emerged is going to be a picture far more intrinsic than the mainstream narrative. So he said, hold on. He said the girlfriend contract gets them ready for the prenup. You goddamn right it does. You goddamn right it does. The girlfriend contract gets ready for a prenup. You know what kind of woman you're dating if she's not willing to get into the girlfriend contract with you. You know exactly what kind of woman you're getting if she's not willing to get into the girlfriend contract with you. I'm not signing a contract. We just met. Okay. Well, we won't be dating for long though. Can't you put that down and we talk about that later? No, I can put it down, but I'm putting the relationship down with the document until we get this under control. And it's going to be a weird scenario. It's going to be a weird, uncomfortable scenario the first time you try to pull it off because you're not used to standing on your non-negotiable expectations for behavior, and women are not used to being put into contract upon commitment in a relationship. We're not even talking about a prenup for because she gonna say that you're trying to get me to sign a prenup to date you. If that's how you want to use it, yes. If that's what you want to call it, yes. It is a clearly identified division of assets from day one. So we start today and update it every 6 months, update it every year. Whenever something changes, we always know where we stand with our stuff. Whenever something new comes up, it is not just an impulse decision, it is a contract modifier, which means that we must negotiate how it is going to change our contract and then update the contract to reflect the change. So if we were living in one house and now we're going to live in two houses, we need to update the contract to show who got what, where, when, and who owns the new properties. Because you have to stand your ground if it's a serious relationship. No, you have to stand your ground if you have a pulse. It doesn't have shit to do with a relationship. You stand your ground at work. You stand your ground in traffic. You stand your ground when you're standing in line at Walmart. You stand your ground fucking watch store where everybody was trying to knock off security to get one of the 200 watches being sold. You stand your ground everywhere that you stand up for what you believe in. But in a relationship, you want to stand your ground from first contact. You don't want to wait until the relationship gets serious. You don't want to be a pushover until the relationship gets serious. And now you want to stand your ground because the argument is going to be you allowed this to happen before. Why are you stopping it now? No, you want to put a stop to it from day one. You don't want to be in a situation where you're going to be allowed to be mistreated. Now, as it stands with Donald Trump going to China, we recognize that the Iran war, uh, we recognize that the public has saw a president pushing for the international cooperation from China. Reality was a high risk bet on personal chemistry with Donald Trump trying to bypass traditional diplomacy to strike a personal deal with Xi Jinping that ultimately fell short. Second, the $250 billion illusion that we talked about a few hours ago, where the public was told of a miraculous $250 billion worth of deals. The reality was a collection of non binding MOUs, repackaged old news, and aspirational projects that would most likely evaporate. It was a masterpiece of political threat theater that gave both leaders a short-term win, made them look good in the eyes of their countries. And a third uh, observation of the imperial pageant, where the public saw a state visit plus scenario showing China's respect. The hidden reality was a brilliant exercise in a dual audience symbolism For China, it was a way to assert its status as equal power to the United States, because we recognize that for a long period of time in society, United States was considered the first world, and every other country was considered second, third, and fourth, where China was number two. And everybody that wasn't China was a third world country, being identified as like a desolate labyrinth wasteland kind of thing, which isn't true, because the largest majority of the 190 something countries in the UN are developed, established countries. But societal stereotypical thoughts is that if it is not the first world, it is an underdeveloped country. So China being number two, positioning themselves as an equal to the United States, is a very esteemed position. And while Donald Trump was strategic about his dialogue in their presence, he was less vocal in their presence than what he usually is on social media and doing his State of the Unions, which is being scrutinized in social media uh, as him being in some way, shape, or form submissive to the Xi Jinping leader. So while for Trump supporters, seeing their leader feted with such grandeur confirmed his status as a uniquely powerful figure. Uh, Xi Jinping equally seen as a equivalent dominant source of power for their country. So taken together, these three angles reveal the central truth of the trip to China most recently. So it was an exercise in narrative controls. Every event and every announcement was designed to project an image of strength, success, and status, which ultimately is the most important for wealthy individuals. The rest of us, it's all about impressing the other people with the stuff that we spent our money on. With wealthy, it is the presentation of strength, success, and status. And strength is the capability to influence others without having to lift a finger. Status is the ability to be treated above others, period. Be accepted in places where others are not, right? And then wealth is the extreme, the success and wealth is going to be the extreme capital gains, big business deals, accomplishing large tasks that the average person can't accomplish. That status looks like. It's not spending multi-million dollars on something. It's not buying a Bugatti. It's owning half of Bugatti. It's not buying a Rolex. It's owning a majority share of the Rolex company. Right? That's the difference between wealth and poverty. So this was going to be a trip, or it was in fact a trip that was less about changing substance of the United States China relationship and more about managing the perception of the Chinese United States relationship. And the reality of Trump's China trip wasn't hidden in some classified document, it was hidden in plain sight. You just had to know exactly where to look for it. Trump taking his China trip did not fundamentally change the Iran war. It produced some limited de escalation signals, but not hard paths to ending the conflict anytime soon. So the war remains in a kind of unstable limbo, with Iran, China, and the United States all hedging for the resolution. So what Trump was trying to get, Trump went to Beijing hoping China would use its leverage as main oil buyer and economic partner to help end the war and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. But the U.S. officials wanted Beijing to cut or condition support for Tehran, stop helping Iran military, and push Iran toward a more durable ceasefire. What he actually got from Xi publicly, Trump and Zayn agreed on some high level points where Iran should never get nuclear weapons and the Strait of Hormuz should stay open, and China opposes militarizing the waterway or charging tolls on global shipping. Now, you understand that the United States has militarized the waterways alongside Iran militarizing waterways, and Iran is charging tolls. So what China is saying indirectly is that I don't agree what you are doing, but I don't agree what they're doing either, right? So Trump claimed that Xi promised not to sell Iran military equipment and said this was a big statement, but there was no detailed, verifiable agreement that was released on that. And analysis are skeptical. Uh, China might really stop all forms of security help to Iran. But there's also the observation, given how valuable Tehran is as a counterweight to the United States powers in the region, that they may not stop providing that aid. So, how it affects the fighting and the ceasefire? Well, before the summit, China had already leaned on Tehran to accept an April ceasefire, mainly to protect its own economic standards from oil prices and disrupted Gulf shipping. So the ceasefire that existed around that time of the visit being fragile, I had earlier shut off the strait to most vessels, but let only its own oil through, including to China, and could easily re-escalate the situation at any given point, where the quality of oil allowed by China's companies would provide commercial and dual use support that ultimately helps Iran's war efforts. So what we recognize is um, this is what's going to show China is using Iran's war to gain leverage with both sides, keeping oil flowing and influencing Tehran while advertising itself as a potential peacemaker to Washington and Europe. So the net effect in plain language is going to be no decisive shifts to the threat of continued dissemination that remains on the table, and Iran still has no room to maneuver. Diplomatically, one more vague pledges where no nukes, keep the strait open, but nothing that locks China or Iran into a binding endgame. Strategically, the trip exposed Trump's limitations because he couldn't really accomplish what he went out there for. He needed the Chinese leverage to cleanly end the war, but China is unwilling to fully sacrifice its relationship with Iran for Donald Trump. So where we are right now is that we're looking at potentially seeing a longer standing conflict where even in the midst of a ceasefire, all the troops and resources and planes and bombs and missiles and everything that's going on over there in Iran costs a lot of money to create and costs a lot of money to ship over. And that's going to cost us a lot of money at the gas pump. And as we see gas prices, as we creep further into the summertime, getting closer to $6 a gallon in California, New York, and Florida, we recognize that eggs are going to be $20 a gallon by the end of the summer, and we just have to adjust. So my advice is again that as you see those stocks going across the top of the screen, that you should put a lot of effort into investing in those stocks and making sure that um, you get your money's worth out of those stocks while those stocks are low and paying out dividends. I know I'm putting my money into the damn stocks. So if y'all don't do it, it is what it is. But as times go by, as times improve, we will see exactly where um, this resolves itself. But from my personal observation, since we have a standstill and Iran is getting resources across land instead of overseas, um, the standstill will likely last another couple of months. If all entryways into the country was uh, um, destroyed or uh, compromised, then the country would likely run out of resources inside of a few months. And in that scenario, because the country would be strained on resources, before riots start occurring on the ground, the leaders would start to negotiate. But as long as they have the capabilities to receive external resources and capital gains and stuff like that through land based trades, it's going to be harder to choke out a system that has an external life support system that you can't pull the plug on. So the double-edged problem that the United States has right now is because the Supreme Court stopped Donald Trump from taxing Iran like 200 or 300%, where Iran would have been making shit tons of money from America, and they can't get taxed on that anymore. Um, excuse me, Donald Trump is running out of cards to play to stop a defiant party from performing defiantly. And one of the biggest reasons why he's running out of cards to play is because the easiest way to go is the most counterproductive way to go. Because the easiest way to go is to blow up all of the major facilities, schools, hospitals, power plants, but if you destroy that particular level of infrastructure where the city would not be able to survive without that particular level of infrastructure, we're talking about like Hiroshima, you would be messing up the oil. So because he's going there specifically for a purpose, you can't really do mass destruction. And because you can't do mass destruction, you're running out of negotiating tools. Now, as long as they don't go back to full on conflict, there's always a chance that discussions can lead to a resolution. But until one side offers something that the other side is willing to accept, we're in a position where they're not going to make much headway. And, drowning a guy in scuba gear is not going to, as long as he's got unlimited oxygen, he's not going to drown. So, so again, like I said, he's got to find another way. Now, that's all I got for you guys for tonight. I was able to throw some financial advice in there for y'all, a number of different ways. We rabbit holed into a few other concepts that had absolutely nothing to do with the war, but it has everything to do with how the war impacts our money. So I want to make sure that you guys take the opportunities from time to time to make sure that you guys like and subscribe and hit those notification buttons on the show, because we got a lot of stuff coming up for y'all. I'm going to start by saying, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. Fellas, I provide you all this information to make you guys higher value men. You have to find the things that are inside of your control and proactively change the things that you do not like. And that gives you the room and capability to navigate around the things that are outside of your control. Ladies, while this is a male-driven podcast from a male's perspective, you can make yourselves higher value women by taking the information I give you and utilizing it to make yourselves higher value women, and then focus on your capabilities and get your 20 and 30-year plan, reverse engineering that to what you got to do today, and then step by step stay goal oriented towards your 20-year or 30-year plan. If you keep your eyes and ears open for the potential suitors that has that right character and personality, drive, ambition, integrity, motivation, determination, and dedication to achieve those goals, his goals match up with your goals, then you guys don't have to have the exact same goal, but you guys can get your goals accomplished together a whole lot faster. I tell you guys every night that two people can make it to $1 million faster than one, but it requires you to collectively work together for long-term shared satisfaction, not short-term gratification. Because if one of you is working for the future and the other one's living in the present, you're not going to succeed. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys for coming to this and that. Special shout out to Michael, Steven, and FX Trader for all the information that y'all put in. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I will see you guys tomorrow.
Higher ground. Used to chase validation, now I validate myself. climb. Standing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. I'm not landing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.